In the blink of an eye after transmigrating into a novel, Ji Changge became a disposable cannon-fodder character in a cultivation story, one who could not even survive a single episode. When he crossed over, that fool of a Sect Master was in the midst of boasting pompously. Master Ji Changge bullied little junior sister again. You must uphold justice for her. Hearing that his newly accepted disciple had caused trouble yet again, Lihen, Sect Master of the Pill Sect, felt the veins on his forehead throb violently. Could this Ji Changge not behave himself for even a moment? Today was the day when the other Sect Masters came to the Pill Sect to discuss matters concerning the grand competition between the 6 sects to be held in half a year. He had just finished ushering the various Sect Masters inside, and before they even reached the main hall, these rebellious disciples chose this very moment to stir up trouble. Lihen forced down the fury surging in his chest and asked harshly, what is it this time? Ever since he had brought Ji Changge back from the mortal world 2 years ago and accepted him as a disciple, he had not enjoyed a single peaceful day. The one who had just spoken was Lihen's 4th disciple, Lihen. At this moment, he walked at the front, dragging along a 13 or 14-year-old youth with a young girl whose eyes were slightly reddened following behind. With righteous indignation written all over his face, Lihen began, just now, I took little junior sister to the back mountain to capture a demonic beast. Little junior sister fancied a fire-type beast. While we were in the midst of battling it, Ji Changge suddenly appeared. I do not know what he did, but that beast abruptly went berserk and charged straight at little junior sister. Little junior sister's cultivation is only at early foundation establishment, whereas that beast is a 3rd-rank demonic beast equivalent to a golden core stage cultivator. How could she possibly withstand it? Ji Changge was right by little junior sister's side at the time, yet he remained indifferent, focused solely on fleeing for his own life, completely disregarding hers. Had I not rescued little junior sister in time, I fear she would already be beyond saving. As Lihen spoke with righteous fury, Jiang Shuwen, the person at the center of the incident, remained silent, standing there with an expression as though still shaken with lingering fear. Hearing this, Ji Changge could not tolerate it any longer. You're talking nonsense. That was a 3rd-rank demonic beast. Jiang Shuwen at Foundation Establishment could not withstand it. Do you expect me, at only the 1st layer of chi refinement, a full major realm lower than her, to be able to withstand it instead? Or is it that in your eyes Jiang Shuwen's life counts as a life, while mine does not? He was utterly speechless at these paper-thin fictional people. Everyone in the sect could not wait to kneel and fawn over Jiang Shuwen. It was not enough that they groveled themselves, they insisted that others grovel along with them. It felt as though Jiang Shuwen was dearer to them than their own fathers. Ji Changge had originally been a freshly graduated university student. After a single sleep, he awoke to discover to his utter dismay that he had transmigrated into a book. He had not only entered the book, but most unluckily had become a cannon-fodder male supporting character, sharing his name one with an utterly miserable end. Just a few days ago, he had finished reading this novel, a pseudo-harem story about a dragon-like male protagonist. At the time, he had enjoyed it greatly, wishing he could become the protagonist and take care of that whole crowd of ambiguous love interests for him. Yet once he truly entered the story and moreover became one of the cannon-fodder pieces in the male and female leads play, he wanted nothing more than to curse out loud. In the original plot, although he was the youngest disciple of the Pill Sect, he was the least likable of them all solely because his aptitude was abysmally poor. Lihen had only accepted him out of pity when he saw how wretched his circumstances were. In the end, during a training expedition, he was pushed out to take a blow by Jiang Shuwen, the female lead, and was torn apart and devoured by a horde of beasts. Hearing Ji Changge's words now, Lihen was momentarily stunned. What madness had seized this brat today? Ji Changge had always been meek and submissive, desperately currying favor with his senior brothers. Though he constantly targeted little junior sister, he had never dared talk back to them, let alone curse them so brazenly. The other Sect Masters exchanged glances, yet said nothing. They had not expected that having just arrived at the Pill Sect, they would immediately witness such a spectacle. The disciples' words, though crude, were not without reason. Ordering a chi refinement stage disciple to protect a foundation establishment stage disciple was indeed absurd. Still, this was an internal matter of the Pill Sect. They needed only to sit back and watch from the sidelines. Seeing his disciple behave thus before outsiders, Lihen felt deeply humiliated and berated Ji Changge. Ji Changge, from the moment you entered this sect, you have never let a single day pass in peace. What has Shuwen ever done to you that you must oppose her at every turn? Setting aside the cultivation level of that demonic beast, is it not your duty to protect a fellow senior sister from your own sect? If all sect disciples were as selfish as you, where would our sect's cohesion come from? Ji Changge was speechless. Fine. So they were going to toss out the facts altogether. If facts were off the table, what on earth was there left to discuss? Without giving Ji Changge the chance to speak, Lihen continued back. Then I saw that you were alone and helpless. Even though you possessed a crippled body with 5 spiritual roots, I still took you in. Who would have thought you would grow so arrogant under favor, neglecting cultivation and filling your mind with crooked schemes instead? If you persist in such unrepentant behavior, this sect can no longer keep you." Yihanshan's expression darkened, and with a flick of his sleeves he turned away. It was time he taught the boy a lesson, lest the child think his master had no way to deal with him. Among the gathered sect masters, the only female sect master's eyes suddenly narrowed when she heard the words 5 spiritual roots, crippled body, and she snapped her gaze toward Ji Changge. The other sect masters were likewise shocked by Ji Changge's 5 spiritual roots, and all turned their eyes on him, yet none noticed the female sect master's unusual reaction. 5 spiritual roots. Just how useless could one be? Lihen looked at Ji Changge with schadenfreude, while Jiang Shuwen, who had remained silent, lowered her head slightly, concealing the emotions in her eyes. To everyone's surprise, Ji Changge did not panic as they had expected upon hearing Yihanshan's words. Instead, he met Yihanshan's gaze, and with unruffled calm removed the disciple jade token from his waist and took off his sect robes. Under the stunned gazes of those around him, he folded the sect robe neatly, then sank to both knees and gently placed the folded robe on the ground. "I thank Sect Master Yi and the Pill Sect for your care these past 2 years. There is no need for Master to personally expel me from the sect. Disciple Ji Changge hereby voluntarily withdraws from the sect." For 2 years, Ji Changge had tried his utmost to ingratiate himself with his master and senior brothers, only to be repaid with their disdain and revulsion. In the original story, no one even cared about his death. Although these were experiences belonging to the original body, Ji Changge could feel them all as if they were his own. There was no longer any reason for him to remain in the Pill Sect. The cultivation world was, comparatively speaking, fairly humane. People did not kill at the slightest disagreement. However, a personal disciple could not simply come and go as he pleased. After all, the sect had invested so many resources into nurturing its personal disciples, how could it allow them to leave so easily? The sect would never normally permit such a thing. Ji Changge's situation, however, was unique. He had long since been branded a piece of trash. The resources allocated to him by the Pill Sect were pitifully few, not even enough to cover the basic monthly share. It could be said that they had already given up on him. His departure now was not a loss to the Pill Sect. If anything, it lightened their burden. Lihen was stunned, and even Jiang Shuwen's eyes held a trace of surprise. Yihanshan was first taken aback, then flew into a rage. Very well. Very well. So now even I may not speak a word of reproach to you. Voluntarily leaving the sect. None of the disciples of this entire sect possess such arrogance. Since that is the case, this sect master shall grant your wish. You are to descend the mountain immediately. For the sake of our past as master and disciple, the resources the sect has spent on you need not be repaid, but from this day forth you may no longer claim to be a disciple of mine. Under normal circumstances, a disciple leaving the sect would have his cultivation abolished, but Ji Changge's meager cultivation at the first layer of qi refinement was hardly worth the trouble. Whether abolished or not, it made little difference. Yihanshan merely hoped Ji Changge would maintain this so-called backbone. If in the future he could not survive outside and sought to return, Yihanshan would not be so accommodating. "Many thanks, Sect Master Yi, for fulfilling my wish. I shall leave at once." Ji Changge's barely concealed eagerness made Yihanshan's chest feel tight with frustration. Ji Changge, however, could not care less about his mood. Farewell and good riddance. He would no longer serve them. Being able to leave the Pill Sect was the best outcome for him. This way he would not have to go on training expeditions with Jiang Shuwen and the others, and naturally would not be torn apart and devoured by beasts for her sake. Jiang Shuwen was the primary female lead of this book, the absolute darling of the entire Pill Sect, and the legitimately wedded wife, most beloved by the male lead. It had to be said that the Pill Sect's elevation of Jiang Shuwen to the heavens was not entirely without merit. In the end, due to her, the male lead looked after the Pill Sect in many ways and rescued it from peril numerous times. None of this, however, had anything to do with Ji Changge. According to the original plot, by then the grass on his grave would already be several feet tall. What use were these events to him? Moreover, after assimilating the original body's memories, Ji Changge realized that Jiang Shuwen was not nearly as kind and steadfast as the novel had portrayed. The reason his senior brothers loathed him so much was that Jiang Shuwen had been subtly isolating and marginalizing him all along. Jiang Shuwen always played the victim, consistently displaying magnanimity and tolerance, leaving Ji Changge unable to defend himself. She had always believed that a piece of trash like Ji Changge was unworthy of being her junior brother. That was not all. Unlike the other senior brothers who treated her well, Ji Changge was always lukewarm toward her. Annoyed by his indifference, Jiang Shuwen had long wanted to drive Ji Changge out of the sect. In the end, she had indeed succeeded. Yet all of this no longer mattered to Ji Changge. He had left the Pill Sect. They could torment each other as they pleased. None of it had anything to do with him anymore. Just as Ji Changge was about to rise and leave, a dignified female voice rang out. "Ji Changge, this seat finds herself very much pleased with you. Since you are no longer a disciple of the Pill Sect, would you be willing to take this seat as your master?" As soon as Ziyun spoke, the other sect masters all turned to look at her in unison. Even Ji Changge revealed a hint of astonishment. With his useless 5-spirit constitution, what could this sect master possibly see in him? Among them, Yihanshan's expression was the ugliest. Even though Ji Changge was no longer his disciple, he still felt as if someone had pried away something that belonged to him. Yihanshan's face grew even gloomier, tinged with disbelief. Sect Master Ji Changge is a worthless cultivator with 5 spirit roots. Are you truly certain you wish to take him as your disciple? A sect master standing beside Ziyun also opened his mouth to dissuade her. Sect Master Yun, the Lihen sect has always accepted only female disciples. As for Ji Changge, Ziyun waved a hand lightly. It is of no consequence. Since this child pleases my eye, it is no matter to accept him as an exception. The sect master fell silent. After all, disciple selection in the Lihen sect had nothing to do with his Qingwan sect. At that moment, Jiang Shuwen, who had remained quiet all this time, hesitated before finally speaking up. Sect Master Yun, this is something I ought not say, yet this junior still hopes you will think twice. Although I too hope senior brother Ji will have a good place to go. If he were to join another sect, that would be one thing. But the Lihen sect is composed solely of female disciples. If senior brother Ji goes there and commits some outrageous impropriety, the reputation of the entire Lihen sect would be. Sect Master Yun, please reconsider. She could not fathom why the dignified master of the Lihen sect insisted on admitting such a 5-spirit good for nothing, and even as an exception. Though Jiang Shuwen's words were presumptuous, Han said nothing, and the others could not be bothered to interfere. Several sect masters felt that Jiang Shuwen's reasoning was sound and nodded repeatedly. Lin Feng, standing beside her, immediately chimed in, "Sect Master Yun, my junior sister, is absolutely right." Ziyun stared at Jiang Shuwen with a faint, inscrutable smile before speaking slowly. "Since you knew you ought not say such things, yet still chose to say them, it proves you never truly believed you were in the wrong. You claim to wish him a good future. I do not believe a word of it. Every sentence you spoke was laden with insinuation. From what I see, you would dearly love for every sect under heaven to reject him. The reputation of my Lihen sect is not something a mere personal disciple of the Pill Sect needs to worry about. Is wreaking havoc within the Pill Sect itself not enough for you? Let alone you. Your master's hand cannot reach into my Lihen sect. Humph. She governed an entire sect of female cultivators. How could she possibly fail to see through such petty manipulative tricks? Only those fools in the Pill Sect would treat this little schemer as some priceless treasure." Ji Changge was amused. He had not expected that this Sect Master Yun would be so adept at seeing through pretense. Ever since Jiang Shuwen entered the Pill Sect, she had been treasured by all, held carefully in everyone's palms. Never before had she been reprimanded so harshly in public. Her eyes turned red at once, tears trembling on her lashes ready to fall. No matter how much resentment surged in her heart, Jiang Shuwen dared not say another word. She realized that this Sect Master Yun was unlike the others. Her usual act had no effect on this woman at all. At this moment, Yihanshan's displeased voice rang out. "Sect Master Yun, everything Shuwen said was true. Even if you dislike hearing it, is there a need to rebuke her so harshly? If you do not wish to see her reprimanded, Sect Master Yi, then teach her proper decorum. I, the master of the dignified Lihen sect, have no need of her commentary on my decisions." After saying this, Ziyun no longer bothered with Yihanshan. She snorted coldly and turned to Ji Changge. "Ji Changge, once you enter my tutelage, you will become a personal disciple of the Lihen sect. Are you willing? I swear that regardless of your innate aptitude, I shall impart to you every last shred of what I have learned in my life." At this moment, storms raged within Ji Changge's heart. He had never imagined that, having only just severed ties with the Pill Sect, the master of the Lihen sect would immediately rush to accept him as a disciple. Yet as someone who had transmigrated into a novel, he knew the future plot like the back of his hand. The Lihen sect, among the 6 great sects, it alone possessed only female disciples, and its sect master alone was a female cultivator. Scenes of the Lihen sect's ultimate fate surfaced in Ji Changge's mind exactly as depicted in the book. Such a name as Lihen, parting from regret, was uncommon among righteous sects. Perhaps to echo the sect's tragic end, the author of the book had given it a name tinged with sorrow. In the original work, 2 of the male protagonists' consorts both hailed from the Lihen sect. Yet unlike the Pill Sect, which basked in benefits by following Jiang Shuwen, the Lihen sect's final outcome was utterly miserable. All of its personal disciples perished. Ziyun fell into madness, and in a single night her hair turned white. In a fury, she led the entire Lihen sect to storm the Pill Sect to avenge her disciples, only to be struck down beneath the male protagonist's sword. The Lihen sect was annihilated to the last. When reading, Ji Changge had felt that though the sect was composed solely of women, they possessed more backbone than any man. One could say the entire Lihen sect existed only as cannon fodder. And now the very sect master who would one day meet such a fate stood before him, sincerely wishing to accept him as her disciple. Should he acknowledge this master or not? If he did, he would gain a place to live and cultivate, and could incidentally slap Yihan's in the face. If he refused with his current first-level chi refining cultivation, even a casual rogue cultivator outside the Pill sect could crush him without effort. Ji Changge made his decision almost instantly. Whatever the future held, after all, the Lihen sect's destruction would not occur until near the very end of the story. He had to survive the present first. Having decided, Ji Changge no longer hesitated. Without even standing up, he turned toward Ziyun and bowed. Master above, please accept this disciple's 3 kowtows. With that, Ji Changge performed a solemn rite, bowing 3 times and prostrating 9 times toward Ziyun. Because the acknowledgement of Master happened so hastily, there had been no preparation. The tea-offering portion of the ceremony would have to be omitted for now. Thus, Ji Changge had only just formally requested to leave the Pill sect, had not even had time to rise from his knees, before he became the personal disciple of another great sect. Moreover, he was a male disciple personally accepted by the Sect Master herself, an existence as rare in the Lihen sect as a scorpion's droppings, utterly unique. Yihan's experienced once more that long-forgotten sensation of being publicly humiliated. Watching Ji Changge gaze at Ziyun with open reverence, he felt like an inflated pufferfish, filled with anger yet unable to explode. After all, on such an occasion, he too had a reputation to maintain. Yet whether Yihan's fumed or not, no one cared. On the other side, Ziyun and her new disciple were already putting on a touching display of master-disciple affection. With a wave of Ziyun's hand, a folding fan shimmering with flowing radiance flew to a stop. Good disciple, this is your master's gift to you upon acknowledging me. This fan is called the 5 Elements Flowing Radiance Fan. It can harmonize with all 5 elemental attributes perfectly suited to your spirit roots, and its form can transform in myriad ways. Today I bestow it upon you. She was exceedingly pleased with this newly accepted disciple. From his attitude toward Jiang Shuan alone, she knew he would never be like the personal disciples of other sects bewitched by Jiang Shuan until their wits abandoned them. Ziyun had long heard of Jiang Shuan's reputation. Among the personal disciples of the 6 great sects, the girl moved with effortless ease. Aside from the Lihen sect, many personal disciples of the other sects treated her with extraordinary regard. At the sight of the treasure Ziyun had produced, everyone's gaze was drawn to it. Anyone with eyes could tell that this fan was no ordinary item. Setting aside its grade, the mere fact that it could synchronize with all 5 elemental spirit roots and shift into countless forms was enough to make legions of cultivators yearn for it. And yet she had given it to a 5 spirit root waste. In the cultivation world, everyone knew that the best innate aptitude was a single spirit root. Such cultivators advanced fastest, and their power was the purest. Even those with 2 mutually reinforcing spirit roots were considered decent, though their cultivation speed was somewhat slower. But 3 or more spirit roots were essentially considered trash, for the different roots within the same dantian would constantly compete for spiritual power, wasting much of it, and ultimately throwing the balance of the roots into disarray. With 5 spirit roots, Ji Changge could be called the pinnacle of waste. Though the 5 elements nourished one another, they did so only when their powers were perfectly balanced, forming a self-sustaining cycle within the body. Achieving such harmony was even harder than simply possessing 5 spirit roots. Within the dantian, the 5 roots would instinctively fight over spiritual energy. By the time any chi was cultivated, most of it would already be consumed by this internal struggle. He would likely never reach even foundation establishment in his entire lifetime. No one could understand what madness afflicted this Sect Master Yun. Jiang Shuan stared at the fan before Ji Changge, her gaze as poisonous as if it had been dipped in venom. Why? Why should a useless waste like him receive such a treasure? When she had acknowledged her own master, the gift she received had been far inferior to this 5 elements flowing radiance fan. Not only the others, even the remaining 5 sect masters were shocked. What was this woman doing, giving such a weighty gift merely for accepting a disciple into a 5 spiritual failure at that? And she was giving it right before their eyes. How were they supposed to present gifts when accepting disciples in the future? This level of extravagance was far too much. The 5 sect masters' gazes were sharp enough to skewer Ziyun where she stood, but she seemed completely oblivious. Seeing that Ziyun was so generous towards Ji Changge, Gu Yihanshan felt that this woman was deliberately putting on a show for him. He couldn't help but feel a twinge of jealousy as he remarked, the sect leader of Yun is indeed generous to her new disciple, giving away such a treasure as the 5 elements flowing light fan to someone who has only cultivated to the first layer of chi refinement after 2 years. It's simply a waste. It's quite impressive that the Lihen sect, being so poor, can afford such a treasure. Ziyun didn't care about the other comments, but as soon as she heard someone say she was poor, she immediately lost her composure. Who are you calling poor, you old coffin lid? You're the poor one. Your whole family is poor. Your entire sect is the poorest. Yunzue Mo was so furious that she jumped up while Yihan Shan remained unfazed. Every time they argued, as long as the topic of the Lihen sect's poverty was brought up, this woman would definitely break down. He had never seen someone so concerned about face in his life. At this moment, Ji Changge came to his senses and calmed Yunzue Mo down, addressing Yihan Shan. Sect leader Yi, you are mistaken. The wind rises at the edges of the green rushes and the waves form between the ripples. What of being at the first layer of chi refinement? Which great power did not start from the first layer of chi refinement? Who knows, one day this waste of mine, with 5 spiritual roots, might also stir up a tremendous wave. He had already thought it through. Even if his subpar aptitude rendered his path of cultivation hopeless, he still had the advantage of holding the script. Now that he had entered the Lihen sect, he had to some extent altered the trajectory of his fate. Although this change was trivial in the grand scheme of the plot, it proved that the storyline was not entirely unchangeable. With the script in hand, he could trigger a butterfly effect and thereby alter the outcome of the Lihen sect. The others looked at Ji Changge as if they had seen a ghost, and one had to admit he really dared to dream. Only Yunzue Mo laughed carefree, saying, "Haha, Changge is right. Perhaps being utterly useless is just a path to genius. Let us all wait and see." After a lively exchange of words, the several sect leaders entered the main hall together to discuss the matters of the 6 sects competition 6 months later. Ji Changge no longer paid attention to Jiang Shu, one only glancing at her with a smile that was not quite a smile. He knew that although Jiang Shu one appeared magnanimous and sensible, she harbored a strong jealousy, believing that all the good things in the world should belong to her. Given the previous events, even if he did nothing, it was enough to twist her heart with jealousy. Sure enough, watching everyone leave, Jiang Shu one was so furious that her palms bled from being pinched, her eyes filled with venom. Why should that be? What qualifications does a waste like him have? Ji Changge followed closely behind his new master with a cold-tempered senior sister by his side. From her demeanor, Ji Changge could tell that she should be his second senior sister, Su Hanyu. In the original work, Su Hanyu had a cold personality deeply devoted to the sword path and was a rare swordsmanship genius. The 6 sects competition was held once every 5 years, with each event and competition format being largely similar. After finalizing the competition matters, Yunzue Mo took Ji Changge and her second disciple aboard a luxurious flying boat to leave. Watching the departing flying boat, Yihan Shan's expression darkened. At this moment, inside the flying boat, Ji Changge looked in astonishment at the empty cabin. He never expected that the flying boat, which appeared lavish from the outside, could be described as barren on the inside. Ahem, I have never liked those flashy things. As cultivators, we should be simple and not disturbed by external matters, so we can focus on our cultivation. Ji Changge closed his slightly agape mouth. If it weren't for your awkward expression, I would have really believed your nonsense. Su Hanyu, who was beside Ji Changge, was already used to this and wore her usual indifferent expression. Her master just had a safe face, as she couldn't stand anyone saying that she was poor. Even if their Lihen sect was so poor that they had to scrape the spirit stones used for decorating their buildings, her master would still insist on starting from the innermost part of the sect. As for the spirit stones used on the outer buildings to maintain appearances, her master refused to let them touch them. Hanyu, you go control the flying boat. I have some words to convey to your junior brother. The sect leader is indeed the sect leader. In just a moment, Yunzue Mo regained her authoritative demeanor and instructed her second disciple. Su Hanyu responded and stepped out. Yunzue Mo turned around and sat down on the only chair available. As soon as she sat down, the chair emitted a creaking sound from being overburdened, but Yunzue Mo was accustomed to it and paid no mind. She first examined Ji Changge's spiritual roots, confirming that they were indeed 5 spiritual roots. Changge, what do you think of your spiritual roots? What do you mean? I can see them standing, sitting, or lying down. No matter how I look, they are still 5 spiritual roots. What else is there to see? However, as a seasoned fan of novels, Ji Changge felt that he was holding the protagonist's script and couldn't possibly be this useless. The 5 spiritual roots within my body are competing for spiritual power, making cultivation indeed difficult, but it is not entirely impossible. I believe that where there is a will, there is a way. Even if there is no path ahead, I will create one. To survive, as long as practicing doesn't kill me, I will practice to the brink. Yunzue Mo nodded, secretly pleased, as such determination was indeed rare. Ji Changge continued. However, it seems from what you said, Master, you have a different perspective on the 5 spiritual. Although the Lihen sect ultimately becomes cannon-fodder, it is also a well-known large sect. He believed that as the sect leader, Yunzue Mo would not take a waste as a disciple for no reason, nor would she casually give away treasures like the 5 elements flowing light fan. Yunzue Mo nodded. Indeed, I have seen related records in the sect's classics stating that 5 spiritual roots are not regarded as waste in the cultivation world. On the contrary, having all 5 elements innate is an exceedingly rare genius constitution, and if encountered, one must take them under their wing. Ji Changge's eyes sparkled. He knew it. How could someone like him who had come from another world simply be a mere... However, the classics also record that innate five-element spiritual roots need activation to reveal their extraordinary traits. If not activated, they are indeed waste spiritual roots. Looking at Yun Zuemo's serious expression, Ji Changge had a bad feeling. So, Master, you are not going to tell me that although the ancestors left these words, they did not leave the method to activate the spiritual roots, right? Yun Zuemo nodded. Indeed. 1,000 curses floated through Ji Changge's mind. If the Sect Master had the authority to communicate with the upper realm's main sect, I could have inquired about it. However, the main sect has lost contact with our sect for 1,000 years due to some unknown circumstances. Now we can only hope to reconnect with the main sect so that I can ask about the methods to activate the spiritual roots. Ji Changge was stunned. Does our sect still have a main sect in the upper realm? Is the support of the Lihen sect that substantial? This was not mentioned in the original storyline. It seems that they can no longer contact the main sect, which is why it was not mentioned in the original work. Otherwise, the fate of the Lihen sect would not have been so tragic. Speaking of the main sect, Yun Zuemo sighed. Once the Lihen sect was the foremost sect of the Kanglan continent, with the other 5 sects merely beneath them. However, as contact with the main sect was lost, the sect's resources gradually fell behind, and with only female disciples being accepted, the limitations became significant. After a millennium, it has now fallen to the bottom among the 6 major sects. This bottom position isn't just about combat power, but encompasses the sect's overall strength in battle, wealth, number of disciples, and potential. If we were to discuss combat power alone, it is definitely the Dan sect that is at the bottom. There is indeed a main sect, but when we can contact them is still uncertain. I tell you this in hopes that you do not wallow in self-pity, but instead focus on your cultivation. You must remember the flowing water does not rush ahead, it is the unceasing flow that matters. After their conversation, Yun Zuemo took Ji Changge outside. As soon as they stepped outside, Yun Zuemo summoned a flying sword which expanded in the wind until it was large enough for someone to stand on. Yun Zuemo leaped onto the flying sword first, with Su Hanyu skillfully following, leaving Ji Changge perplexed. Seeing his master and senior sister looking at him, Ji Changge climbed onto the flying sword as well. In the next moment, the flying boat was retracted by Yun Zuemo, who cast a wind control spell on Ji Changge, and the flying sword shot forward with a whoosh. In a blink, they had already landed at the entrance of the Lihen sect, where Ji Changge was clutching a large stone, feeling utterly nauseous. Heaven knows that when the flying sword took off, Ji Changge was nearly scared stiff. It was even more exhilarating than bungee jumping in the modern world. The key issue was that there were no safety measures at all. Were they not at all concerned about driving safety? If someone had a heart condition, they would be sent off directly. To save a few spirit stones, the master really did not care about the life of his new disciple. Looking at Ji Changge, who was pale and vomiting, the normally indifferent Su Hanyu rarely showed concern. Junior brother, are you all right? Ji Changge waved his hand. I'm fine, just feeling a bit dizzy from the sword. At this moment, Ji Changge's face was as pale as a ghost. When he looked up, he saw a portal towering about 10 zhang high, shimmering brilliantly in the sunlight, with 3 large characters inscribed above Lihen sect. With just one glance, Ji Changge could see that this portal was carved from a massive spirit stone. Spirit stones in the cultivation world resemble modern diamonds on the outside. They shine with 7 colors under sunlight, but are not as transparent as diamonds. Many large sects also decorate their buildings with spirit stones, making the entire sect appear radiant. But a door made entirely of spirit stones is truly one of a kind in the world of cultivation. Had it not been for witnessing his master's style, just by looking at this door, Ji Changge would have believed that entering this sect would grant him unprecedented wealth. Yun Zuemo and her disciple naturally knew what Ji Changge was thinking. Looking at the grand door, Yun Zuemo had a complex expression. Heaven knows when the sect was at its poorest, if she hadn't thrown a tantrum and stubbornly refused to cooperate, this door would have been smashed by Elder Qin to distribute the stones for the disciples' cultivation. The 3 entered, and it must be said that a sect entirely composed of female cultivators has a rather elegant living space. The Lihen sect featured pavilions and flowing water exuding a certain artistic charm. Moreover, the buildings were embedded with numerous spirit stones refracting a rainbow of colors under the sunlight, making the entire sect look like a fairyland. However, once they entered, the atmosphere drastically changed. The spirit stones on the buildings were sparse, and many buildings had variously sized pits indicating where spirit stones had originally been embedded. Now, they had been removed, leaving behind unsightly holes completely lacking the previous stunning beauty. Ji Changge felt that this place looked as if it had been shot up by a machine gun. Yun Zuemo first took Ji Changge to see his own residence, a tranquil courtyard adjacent to the courtyards of several senior sisters. After looking at his courtyard to show her importance, Yun Zuemo personally led him to meet the sect's eldest disciple, who was still within the sect. Passing by several middle courtyards, Yun Zuemo introduced Ji Changge. These are the courtyards of your 3rd senior sister, 4th senior sister, and 5th senior sister. They went down the mountain for errands and are not currently in the sect. Hanyu is your 2nd senior sister. As she spoke, Yunzuamo couldn't help but sigh, internally wondering why she had taken her 2nd disciple out. Hanyu couldn't even speak a word, leaving her to personally explain everything to her little disciple. How embarrassing. As they spoke, they arrived at the residence of the eldest sister just as she was coming out of seclusion. As soon as they entered, Yunzuamo cheerfully said, "Yun Qing, this is my new little disciple who will be your little brother from now on. Changge, this is your eldest sister, Jiang Yunqing." Jiang Yunqing looked at Ji Changge with some surprise. A junior brother. The sect usually only accepts female disciples. How did they receive a junior brother this time? "Hello, eldest sister. I am the newly admitted junior brother, Ji Changge." Ji Changge greeted her with a beaming smile. Jiang Yunqing, a water spiritual root cultivator, was gentle and tolerant by nature. Although she felt some surprise, she offered a warm smile. "So it's my little junior brother. Just in time, I drew a true martial talisman during my seclusion, and I'll give it to you as a meeting gift." Jiang Yunqing was a talisman maker, and this true martial talisman could instantly enhance a cultivator's combat power, useful for those below the transformation stage. However, the higher the realm, the weaker the effect, lasting for the duration of a stick of incense. For low-ranked cultivators, it could be immensely helpful in critical moments. Remarkably, while most secret methods for forcibly enhancing strength have side effects, this true martial talisman has no side effects apart from a brief period of weakness after use. This true martial talisman is extremely valuable and hard to come by. "Thank you, eldest sister." Ji Changge joyfully accepted it. Just as he was about to put it away, Master Yunzuamo excitedly snatched the talisman away. "Yun Qing, you successfully drew the true martial talisman." Yunzuamo looked again and again, finally confirming that it was indeed the true martial talisman. Although it was of low quality, Yun Qing was the first among the younger generation to be able to draw it. Even Ziyun Mountain, the chief disciple of the Lihen sect, which specializes in talisman arrays, has not been able to draw the true martial talisman until now. Good. Yun Qing, you are truly a good student of mine." Yunzuamo returned the true martial talisman to Ji Changge, her face beaming with joy as she walked outside, while taking out a jade slip to send a message. "Master Xiao, how have you been lately? By the way, you probably don't know yet, my Yun Qing has drawn the true martial talisman, but unfortunately, it is only of low quality. This child usually doesn't listen when I tell her to work a little harder. Now she has only managed to draw a low-grade talisman. Oh, by the way, how is your chief disciple Ziyun Mountain doing? He is the #1 genius of the Lihen sect, surely much better than my disappointing disciple." At that moment, the Sect Master of Lihen sect slammed the table in front of him. Yunzuamo continued to send messages to others. "Master Yi, we have arrived at the sect. I must tell you that Changge is truly a lucky star. How could you bear to expel him from the Pill sect?" As soon as he arrived at the sect, Yun Qing drew the true martial talisman. You probably don't know this yet, even though it's a low-grade one and somewhat disappointing. Ji Changge watched his departing master, his mouth twitching, while the other two appeared unfazed. Ji Changge also noticed that his senior sister had consumed a lot of spiritual energy in drawing talismans and was already quite fatigued, so he refrained from saying more and left with his 2nd senior sister. Senior sister Jiang Yunqing was just as he remembered, gentle and kind. In the original storyline, she was also infatuated with the male lead, Fu Qingyi. However, knowing that both of his junior sisters had entangled themselves with Fu Qingyi, causing significant discord, she concealed her feelings and silently withdrew. Yet this excellent senior sister, upon learning that her junior sister had died because of Jiang Shu, once sought to settle the score and was slain by Fu Qingyi's sword. Thinking about his senior sister, Ji Changge wore a frown all the way. On the road, the 2nd senior sister silently took out a fiery red fruit and handed it to Ji Changge. "A gift for our meeting. Suhan, you said succinctly, fire spirit fruit, which can enhance fire attribute power." Ji Changge took it and exclaimed, "2nd senior sister, you are so kind." Although the 2nd senior sister had an icy demeanor like a domineering figure, her combat power was still quite impressive, thus it was still very necessary to cling to her leg. Seeing the bright eyes of his junior brother Suhan, you suddenly blurted out, "Don't fall in love with me, it won't end well." Ji Changge felt a sweat. This 2nd senior sister was a bit narcissistic. Upon returning to his residence, Ji Changge began to focus on the heart method of the Lihen sect that his master had given him. To change his and the sect's fate, he needed to seize every moment for cultivation. Regardless of the time, strength is the ultimate truth. Although Ji Changge was a modern person who had not practiced before, having the memories of the original owner made it not difficult for him. He completely abandoned the entry-level heart method of the Pill sect that he had practiced before and directly cultivated according to the heart method given by his master. Although the Pill Sect was also a large sect, what he had practiced before was just the entry-level heart method for ordinary disciples, while the one his master gave him was the core heart method that could only be practiced by direct disciples of the Lihen sect. The two were not on the same level at all. As soon as Ji Changge began to operate the 5 elements creation art, he sensed the difference. After circulating it once in his body, it seemed to operate autonomously, flowing smoothly. Spiritual energy surged into his body like a tidal wave. Ji Changge thought it was just the high level of this heart method and didn't think too much about it, continuing to focus on his cultivation and gradually entering a meditative state. He was in a meditative state, but the entire Lihen sect was in an uproar. The spiritual energy of the Lihen sect surged wildly, rushing towards a specific location. The intensity of the spiritual energy disturbance led several elders to think that enemies were invading. Flying high to observe the source of the disturbance, they found it seemed to be in the area where the direct disciple resided. Ziyun Mountain recognized at a glance that it was Ji Changge's courtyard. She immediately stopped several elders who were about to investigate and ordered that no one should disturb it. She herself used her divine sense to probe the situation in Ji Changge's courtyard, and upon seeing it she was stunned. "This kid has entered a meditative state." An elder asked in confusion. "Even if he's in a meditative state, it shouldn't cause such a commotion, right? Sect Master, what kind of monster have you brought back?" Ziyun Mountain said lightly, "The 5 spiritual roots recorded in the ancestral texts." The others gaped in shock. Did the 5 spiritual roots really exist as recorded in the ancestral texts? However, even if it were the 5 spiritual roots, it shouldn't have caused such a disturbance before they were activated, right? This was precisely what puzzled Ziyun Mountain, and she could only wait until Ji Changge finished his meditation to ask clearly. When Ji Changge ended his cultivation and reopened his eyes, it was already the next morning. He felt refreshed and immediately looked into his dantian to see the results of his night of cultivation. However, upon looking, he was stunned. Before he could recover from his shock, Ziyun Mountain arrived at his courtyard. "Changge, what happened last night?" Ziyun Mountain had been paying attention to Ji Changge's situation all night, and as soon as he finished his cultivation, she was the first to arrive. Ji Changge looked up at his master, entering his face still showing signs of shock. "Master, I think my spiritual roots might have a problem." Ziyun Mountain was taken aback. "What kind of problem?" "The 5 spiritual roots in my dantian have disappeared and turned into a tree. But I can feel that my spiritual roots are still the 5 spiritual roots, just that their form has changed. Moreover, due to the change in the form of the spiritual roots, they absorbed a large amount of spiritual energy, resulting in Ji Changge having no change in cultivation level despite meditating all night." "How could this happen?" Ziyun Mountain murmured. "The form has changed." As she muttered this, Ziyun Mo's eyes suddenly widened. "If the form has changed, doesn't that mean the spiritual roots have been activated?" Ziyun Mountain grabbed Ji Changge. "Apart from the change in the form of the spiritual roots, have you felt any other changes?" Hearing that he had accidentally activated the spiritual roots, Ji Changge was also quite surprised. He quickly sensed the spiritual roots within his body. The extent of the change was almost enough to startle him. "Master, I feel that with the operation of the 5 elements creation art, it seems that with every breath I take, the spiritual energy in my spiritual roots is increasing. But perhaps the spiritual energy I absorbed last night was spent on the change of the spiritual roots. My cultivation level hasn't increased for now. Although the increase is minimal, it can still be sensed carefully." Given his current low cultivation level, he could clearly feel that within a few breaths the spiritual energy in the root tree in his dantian would increase slightly. At this point, Ziyun Mountain was completely convinced that Ji Changge had truly activated his spiritual roots, otherwise it would be impossible to be so astonishing. Ji Changge recounted what he had cultivated last night to Ziyun Mountain. She finally understood why the ancestor did not leave behind methods to activate the spiritual roots, because the core heart method of their Lihen sect was already the method to activate the spiritual roots. After Ziyun Mountain left, the senior sister and second senior sister also came to see Ji Changge. Seeing that he was fine, they all felt relieved. After sending off the 2 senior sisters, Ji Changge began to study the swordsmanship of the Lihen sect. The sword technique of the Lihen sect is named Falling Snow Sword Technique, which possesses formidable power, yet even the first move left Ji Changge perplexed. He studied for 3 days without any progress, and ultimately had to seek help from his second senior sister. Xianxia promptly demonstrated the first move, snow drifting in the world, and even explained the nuances of this technique to Ji Changge for the first time. Seeing Ji Changge still looking bewildered, Xianxia remained silent. "Junior brother has just begun. This swordsmanship cannot be mastered in a day. Just practice diligently." Ji Changge casually asked second senior sister, "How long did it take you to learn this first move when you started?" 3 hours was barely enough to grasp its shape. This grasping its shape referred to merely looking like he could perform it, while in reality, it lacked any real power. Ji Changge fell silent. If his second senior sister could achieve this in 3 hours, how could he still struggle with just the initial move after 3 days of study? This sword technique simply did not suit him. Ji Changge resolutely refused to admit it was his problem. After years of exam-oriented education, he firmly believed in his learning capabilities. It was not until evening that Ji Changge returned to his own residence dejected. Today his second senior sister had tirelessly demonstrated countless times, yet he could not learn it no matter how hard he tried. No matter how many times he watched the move, it slipped through his mind like water through fingers, leaving no impression at all. Ji Changge flipped through the book of falling snow sword technique, feeling somewhat demoralized. Since he couldn't master the first move, he decided to look at the subsequent ones. After all, he had nothing else to do. Ji Changge flipped to the later sections. His memory had always been good, yet these sword techniques were such that they were forgotten as soon as seen, with not a single word remaining in his mind. Until he reached the 9th move of the falling snow sword technique, the last move, snow falling in the galaxy. This move was specifically marked as an immortal level supreme skill. Upon seeing the words immortal level supreme skill, Ji Changge was involuntarily drawn in. His gaze lingered on those characters, and for some reason he felt that this most difficult immortal level supreme skill appeared to him as the simplest. It seemed that with just a glance he could fully master it. Doubting it was merely his illusion, Ji Changge took out the 5 elements flowing light fan and transformed it into a sword, practicing in his courtyard. With his eyes closed, Ji Changge recalled the content of this move and unwittingly began to practice it. At that moment he was entirely immersed in this technique, oblivious to the rumbling noises around him. When he finally opened his eyes, he was astonished. His once quaint courtyard had been reduced to ruins, and he stood at the center of the debris. Where did my large house go? I just practiced the sword, and now it's all gone. With this power, I feel I could apply to be in the demolition team of the cultivation world. The commotion caused by Ji Changge at night drew everyone's attention once more, and this time his master and the 2 senior sisters arrived. Upon hearing Ji Changge's description, all 3 appeared dumbfounded. The 3 believed that no matter how talented Ji Changge was, he could not have skipped directly to mastering the 9th move of the falling snow sword technique without learning the previous 8 moves. After Ji Changge demonstrated it again, they were left speechless for a long time. While Jiang Yunqing and Su Hanyue could not discern it, Yunzumo was the only one in the Lihen sect who had mastered all 9 moves. She recognized at a glance that Ji Changge's performance was both form and spirit combined, and aside from some awkwardness, there was no issue. He truly mastered the 9th move. This was an immortal level sword technique. To say he had mastered it just like that, in a single night. The 3 asked Ji Changge many questions and learned that he had not mastered any of the other 8 moves, only managing to master this 9th move, leaving them even more confused. The falling snow sword technique emphasizes gradual progression, with each move stronger than the last, and as it progressed it became increasingly complex. It was simply unheard of for someone like Ji Changge to master the 9th move without even understanding the first. Yunzumo did not dwell on it too much, considering it might simply be the peculiarities brought about by the activation of his spiritual roots. Ultimately, the master and second senior sister left with their doubts, but it was a good thing that junior brother had exceptional talent. However, on the way back, Su Hanyue appeared somewhat absent-minded, muttering to herself, clearly affected by the event. Ji Changge's courtyard was destroyed, and he was relocated to the courtyard beside the master sister. After returning, Ji Changge began to meditate and cultivate without any further conversation. The next day, as the first rays of morning light broke through the horizon, Ji Changge opened his eyes on time and began to meditate and cultivate. He could distinctly feel that ever since his spiritual roots were activated, his cultivation speed had increased significantly. In the past, whenever spiritual energy surged in, his 5 spiritual roots would compete fiercely within his dantian for the scant amount of spiritual energy. This competition would also consume some of it. This led to him only achieving the first layer of chi refinement after 2 years of cultivation. Now his 5 spiritual roots were all on the spiritual root tree, each occupying a branch, and the spiritual energy entering the dantian flowed entirely into the spiritual root tree, allowing the 5 spiritual roots to progress together without any competition for energy. Ji Changge thought to himself, this must be the legendary equilibrium of the 5 elements. After finishing his meditation, Ji Changge opened his eyes. Today, he needed to descend the mountain. According to the original plot, 5 days after the disciple recruitment conference, 5th senior sister, she would encounter the male lead Fu Qingye on Ziyun Mountain and fall head over heels for him, leading to an uncontrollable situation. To some extent, many of the events that later transpired in the Lihen sect were largely due to this. Holding the script, Ji Changge certainly could not allow such a thing to happen again. Moreover, in the original plot, 5th senior sister was bullied on Ziyun Mountain, and he could not stand by and do nothing. The appearance of fire attribute spiritual plants on Ziyun Mountain greatly benefited cultivators with fire spiritual roots. 5th senior sister possessed both wind and fire spiritual roots, so she would undoubtedly not give up. In the original plot, upon receiving the news, fifth senior sister hurried to Ziyun Mountain, enduring great hardships to acquire that spiritual plant. However, just as she obtained the spiritual plant, it was snatched away by the people from the Dan sect and given to Jiang Shuan. Jiang Shuan, possessing both wood and fire spiritual roots, had her wood and fire elements complementing each other, making her a rare genius in the cultivation world. Moreover, Jiang Shuan's wood-fire spiritual roots eventually produced fire, which was incredibly abundant, making alchemy much more efficient. This was also part of the reason why Yi Han valued her. With a treasure that could enhance attributes, the Dan sect would naturally go to great lengths to secure it for Jiang Shu. Yushi immediately fought with the Dan sect, but unfortunately the spiritual plant was ultimately absorbed by Jiang Shuan. Furthermore, the people from the Dan sect took advantage of their numbers to surround her, relying on the fact that the Lihen sect only had fifth senior sister. In the end, she was rescued by the passing Fu Qingye, and from then on she developed deep feelings for Fu Qingye. He had to find fifth senior sister before that happened to prevent everything from unfolding. Additionally, he was determined to secure the spiritual plants on Ziyun Mountain. Although he had never met fifth senior sister, he loved the Lihen sect and his master and senior sisters dearly. He could not let the Lihen sect face the tragic ending in the book. He would ensure that the Lihen sect would no longer be filled with hatred. After making up his mind, Ji Changge approached his two senior sisters and shared the excuse he had prepared long ago. Senior sisters, I heard from the disciples of the sect that there are fire attribute spiritual plants appearing on Ziyun Mountain. I saw on the cultivation forum that fire spiritual roots can enhance fire attribute power by absorbing fire attribute spiritual plants, so I want to see if I can obtain one. The cultivation forum he mentioned is a feature within communication jade slips where cultivators can post messages and access a wealth of the latest news from the cultivation world, including a lot of informative content. It's quite similar to modern forums. Upon hearing about the fire attribute spiritual plants, the two senior sisters realized that it was exactly what their little junior brother needed. The sect didn't have many precious materials, and their little junior brother had to keep an eye out himself. Other sects' little junior brothers and junior sisters are spoiled with whatever they want, while their own little junior brother has to fend for himself. Go for it. Isn't it just a spiritual plant? Not to mention spiritual plants, if their little junior brother needed the head of that old man, Yi Han, they would find a way to get it for him. Why is their sect so poor? In the cultivation world, whether it's pills, talismans, or mystical tools and spiritual weapons, everything can be bought with spirit stones. Although their sect has talisman masters, the few talisman masters available must supply the entire sect's needs, leaving very few talismans that can be sold. The situation is similar for alchemists and weapon refiners, and this is precisely why the sect is so impoverished. In contrast, those sects focused on talisman making, alchemy, and weapon refining are all exceedingly wealthy. The sect is aware of this, but it seems they intentionally maintain a balance among the four paths. Each generation must possess talent in all four paths. Even though the sword path may be stronger each generation, the other three paths are not weak. The so-called four paths refer to alchemy, talismans, swords, and tools. Originally, there was also an array path, but talismans and arrays merged, evolving into the four paths. The three of them quickly reached an agreement, and as Ji Changge rode on the flying sword of his second senior sister, they shouted excitedly towards Ziyun Mountain. Everyone they passed couldn't help but glance over. There was no helping it. He didn't want to embarrass himself, but he simply couldn't control it. Riding the sword was overly thrilling, and he still needed to adapt a few more times. After landing, both senior sisters looked at Ji Changge with a complicated expression. After all, they were female cultivators and still cared about their image. Ji Changge could naturally tell what they were thinking. Senior sisters, this is only the second time someone has carried me on a flying sword. I'll get used to it after a few more tries. Didn't I do much better than last time? Su Hanyu thought about it and realized it was true. At least he hadn't vomited this time. While Ji Changge was speaking, the eldest senior sister had already taken out a jade slip to send a message and began explaining to the two. I received a message from our fifth junior sister on the way. She is also on Ziyun Mountain and seems to be about to obtain the fire liuli. However, both the Alchemy Sect and the Divine Mechanism Sect have many people there, and our fifth junior sister sent word for me to bring people to assist. Su Hanyu understood. No wonder the eldest senior sister suddenly sped up on the way. They were quite fortunate this time. If they had stayed at the sect, they would have arrived too late. The next moment, the jade slip in Jiang Yunqing's hand lit up. After a quick glance, she promptly rushed towards a certain direction, with Su Hanyu and Ji Changge closely following her. Not long after, the three of them saw a girl wearing the sect's uniform surrounded by several figures in red. Without needing to ask, they recognized the girl as their fifth senior sister Yushi, and the ones surrounding her were disciples of the Alchemy Sect. The second senior sister was about to draw her sword, and the eldest senior sister had already held a talisman in her hand, but Ji Changge immediately stopped them and made a shushing gesture. The two were confused. Ji Changge pulled them into a nearby bush, signaling them to observe first. At this moment, Yu Zai's face was filled with coldness. Lin Feng, what do you mean by this? Are you really trying to use your numbers to forcibly snatch the fire Lioli? Lin Feng sneered. You see if you know what's good for you, hand over the fire Lioli. That's something our little junior sister needs, and you think you can compete with her? This fire Lioli is something I obtained after great effort. If you want to dream on, today you'll have to take it whether you want to or not. With that, Lin Feng swung his long sword straight at Yu Shi, while the other disciples of the Alchemy Sect also attacked her simultaneously. Yu Zai's eyes turned cold. Her strength was on par with Lin Feng's, but the other side had the advantage in numbers, and she was not his opponent. Yu Shi planned to use a delaying tactic. The eldest senior sister had already reached Ziyun Mountain. As long as she could hold on for a moment until the eldest senior sister arrived, these rabble would definitely not be a match for her. In the cultivation world, the cultivation levels are divided into 6 major realms: Qi, Refinement, Foundation, Establishment, Golden Core, Nascent, Soul Transformation, Avoid, and Transformation of Spirit. Yu Shi and Lin Feng were both Golden Core cultivators, while Jiang Yunqing, Su Hanyue, and the top disciples from various sects were all at the Nascent Soul level. Just as Yu Shi was about to unleash the power of her wind spiritual root to engage with the opponent, a chilling sword Qi suddenly struck at Lin Feng, who was leading the Alchemy Sect. With just a glance, Lin Feng understood that he could not block this strike. He immediately stumbled and turned to escape. However, unexpectedly, a vine suddenly emerged from beneath his feet, tripping him up, causing him to fall awkwardly. Ji Changge, hidden in the shadows, withdrew the spiritual energy controlling the vine and calmly followed the eldest senior sister out. At this moment, Lin Feng had no mind to pay attention to them. His eyes were fixed on the direction from which the sword had just struck. Su Hanyue, how is this possible? Didn't Yu Shi just send a distress signal not long ago? How could the people from the Lihen sect arrive so quickly? Not just the second senior sister, but we are here too. Ji Changge replied cheerfully. Seeing both the second and eldest senior sisters arrive, she was overjoyed. Eldest senior sister, second senior sister, you're here. She pointed at Lin Feng and the others, starting to complain. They were trying to forcibly snatch my fire Lioli. Fortunately, you arrived just in time. Who is this? This is my master's newly accepted little junior brother, Ji Changge. Jiang Yunqing introduced. Hello, little junior sister. Ji Changge greeted with a cheerful smile. Yu's eyes lit up upon seeing Ji Changge. She was no longer the youngest disciple. She now had a little junior brother, and he was the only junior brother in the Lihen sect. This little junior brother looks so cute. His baby face still has a bit of baby fat. I want to pinch it. She smiled, her eyes curving. Hello, little junior brother. Lin Feng, who had just gotten up, was completely ignored by the group. They truly didn't take him seriously. Lin Feng was furious. Humph, what little junior brother? He's just a waste that was kicked out of my alchemy sect. You guys from the Lihen sect treat him like a treasure. After saying this, Lin Feng felt a chill run down his spine and instinctively shrank his neck. When he looked up, he saw 3 pairs of icy eyes fixed on him. Only Ji Changge remained unbothered, instead smiling cheerfully as he replied, Yes, even if I'm a waste, my senior sisters still pamper me. What? Did that break your defense? Or are you still not done with your fall earlier and want to try again? You? Lin Feng was so enraged by Ji Change's smug expression that he immediately wanted to draw his sword and stab that damn smile off his face. But he still suppressed that impulse. If those accompanying him today weren't 2 nascent soul cultivators, he would have definitely taught this brat a lesson. He forced himself to suppress the anger in his heart, reminding himself that his little junior sister's matter was more important. He compelled himself to shift his gaze away from Ji Changge. You see, that fire Lioli is very much needed by my little junior sister. We from the Alchemy Sect can buy it, or just name your price. At this point, forceful snatching was no longer an option. They could only resort to buying. What our Alchemy Sect lacks the least is spirit stones. The members of the Lihen Sect may appear glamorous on the surface, but in reality, they are as poor as beggars. They should not reject this proposal. Sure enough, upon hearing his words, Yushi hesitated. Though consuming the fire Lioli herself would enhance her own power, the attribute spiritual plants are quite rare, and fire Lioli is of considerable value. If exchanged for spirit stones, it would sustain the 6 of them, the direct disciples, for a long time. Jiang Yunqing immediately wanted to refuse. They had come for the fire Lioli. Now that it was in their hands, there was no reason to give it to others. Moreover, whether it was for the 5th junior sister or the little junior brother absorbing it would enhance their spiritual roots, something that no amount of spirit stones could achieve. Just as Jiang Yunqing was about to refuse, Ji Change's voice rang out. Really? Does our little junior sister need us to hand it over to her? Why should we? Just because she is prettier than us? No deal. This fire Lioli belongs to my 5th senior sister, and no one should covet it. Jiang Yunqing smiled lightly. The little junior brother is right. Su Hanyue pointed her long sword at the ground, ready for a fight. No deal. Yushi felt warmth in her heart as she watched her seniors and juniors refuse without hesitation. Lin Feng gritted his teeth in anger. You all are so ungrateful. It's not just you from the Lihen sect who has reinforcements. My senior brother is personally here with his men. Don't think you can disrespect us. Su Hanyue snorted disdainfully. Don't bring up trash like Lu Tingyun. I could take on 10 of him. Lin Feng was left speechless. To be fair, their chief senior brother really couldn't defeat Su Hanyue. Though their alchemy sect also practiced swordsmanship, their primary focus was alchemy, and thus their combat ability was naturally inferior to genuine sword cultivators. Just when Lin Feng was choked into silence, a gentle voice echoed. Miss Su, you have quite the bravado. Lu had no idea I was so pitifully weak. As the words fell, Lu Tingyun appeared with a group of disciples clad in fiery red sect robes, with Jiang Shuwan standing beside him. Almost simultaneously arriving was Lu Yiming, the chief disciple of the Divine Machine Sect, accompanied by a group of disciples from his sect. The Divine Machine Sect specializes in weapon forging and puppet crafting, with many disciples possessing fire spiritual roots, naturally wanting to seize this spiritual plant. Following closely behind was the male lead of this story, Fu Qingya from the Nameless Sword Sect. Apart from the 4 from the Lihen sect, the Nameless Sword Sect had the fewest members, but each was a sword cultivator. Coupled with the Dragon Ao Tian male lead Fu Qingya, their combined combat strength was unexpectedly the strongest. This was Ji Changge's first time seeing the male lead of this book. It was no wonder so many female cultivators were enamored with him. With a stern face and a tall figure, he stood like a sword drawn from its sheath, exuding an aura of righteousness just by being there. Even Ji Changge couldn't help but glance at him more than twice. At that moment, the second senior sister Su Hanyu's voice rang out as she pointed her long sword at Lu Tingyun. Are you unaware of your own frailty? If you disagree, come and fight me. Su Hanyu's words turned Lu Tingyun's face from blue to white. If he could defeat Su Hanyue, why would he waste time talking to her here? In her heart, Ji Changge gave a thumbs up to the second senior sister, as she was one of the few in the original plot who remained unaffected by the male lead. Since Fu Qingya's appearance, the second senior sister hadn't even glanced at him. Glancing aside, she saw the fifth senior sister looking at Fu Qingya with infatuation, and even the eldest sister's gaze lingered on Fu Qingya several times. Ji Changge immediately stepped forward to block their view. Eldest sister, fifth senior sister, these people are here for the fire Liuli. We might not be able to escape. She was reminding them to pay attention to their situation. This was not the time for love. Yushi instantly awakened. Yes, the most important thing now was to protect the fire Liuli. In the original plot, if Fu Qingya had said he wanted it, she would have gladly handed over the fire Liuli. But now that the plot had changed, the bond of gratitude for Fu Qingya saving her from danger was gone, and her feelings for him had greatly diminished. She hadn't even reached the point of infatuation. Ji Changge and Yushi were whispering together in the back, while Jiang Yunqing stepped forward to stand shoulder to shoulder with Su Hanyue, with talismans already in hand ready to act. What? Are you all trying to forcibly seize the fire Liuli from my fifth junior sister? Fu Qingya remained silent. He had come following the aura of the fire Liuli. Since it already had an owner, and the strength of the Lihen sect members was not weak, forcibly seizing it would be difficult, and there was no need to act like a villain. The chief disciple of the Divine Machine Sect, Lu Yiming, was quickly calculating in his mind. Currently, with 2 nascent souls from the Lihen sect present, Fu Qingya was known for his aloofness and might not take action. If he were to unite with the Alchemy Sect, especially considering that they were burdened with Ji Changge, it was indeed not impossible to succeed. Everyone present could clearly see that Ji Changge was only at the qi refining stage. At this moment, Jiang Shuwan's eyes were filled with anxiety and grievance, and she harbored some resentment toward her fourth senior brother. It was just Yushi. He had chased her for so long without obtaining the fire Liuli, and had now attracted so many people. Lin Feng looked at his junior sister's anxious and aggrieved expression, feeling a pang of heartache. He immediately steeled himself and spoke through gritted teeth. Jiang Yunqing, you need to provide evidence for your words. What do you mean by us forcibly seizing Yu Zai's fire Liuli? This fire Liuli was clearly discovered by my junior sister first, and it was Yushi who, relying on her higher cultivation, forcefully took it away. We are merely reclaiming what belongs to us. Upon hearing this, Lu Yiming, who was torn between reputation and spiritual plants, was so excited he nearly slapped his thigh. How clever! This places him on the moral high ground. No one could refute that. Lu Yiming immediately echoed. So it's like this. The Lihen sect is truly despicable. In that case, our Divine Machine Sect must assist the Alchemy Sect in reclaiming the fire Liuli. Such distorted behavior must not be encouraged. While Lu Yiming was speaking, he had already quietly reached an agreement with Lu Tingyun through voice transmission, 1/2 of the fire Liuli for each of them. Just as the 2 sects were sharpening their blades, Ji Changge stepped out from behind the eldest sister. You say this fire Liuli was discovered first by Jiang Shuwan. That my 5th senior sister stole it from you. Lin Feng asserted confidently. Exactly. Ji Changge looked at Jiang Shuwan. Jiang Shuwan, is that the case? Jiang Shuwan's expression was somewhat hesitant, as if she were contemplating whether to reveal the truth. I didn't want to bring this up in front of several major sects to protect Yu Zai's face. I think. Yushi really needs this fire lily, so I. As Jiang Shuwan spoke ambiguously, Yushi nearly lost her breath in anger. What nonsense. They were the ones who discovered it first. From the moment she found the fire lioli until now, it was only Lin Feng who had been chasing her. Jiang Shuwan hadn't even shown her face. How did it become that she discovered it first? Enough. Ji Changge impatiently interrupted her. That is my senior sister, not yours. Don't try to get close, and no one wishes to acknowledge you as a junior sister. My previous question required a simple yes or no answer. What Ji Changge wanted was not her ambiguous answer. Jiang Shuwan's hand clenched within her sleeve turned pale under everyone's gaze, and ultimately, she gave a decisive answer. Yes. Ji Changge laughed, his joy evident. He dashed back to second senior sister's side, a recording stone appearing in his hand. This was among the resources his master had given him after he entered the sect. He input spiritual energy to activate the recording stone, and the next moment a light screen projected before everyone. When Ji Changge took out the recording stone, Jiang Shuwan had a bad premonition, and the next moment her fears were confirmed. A somewhat angry voice from you, she clearly reached everyone's ears. Lin Feng, what do you mean by this? Do you want to use your numbers to forcibly seize the fire glaze? The dialogue between the two was recorded flawlessly by the recording stone until everyone arrived. In the end, the scene even rewound, maliciously freezing on the image of Lin Feng falling flat on his face. The right and wrong were already very clear. Ji Change's thoughts were simple: if you want to seize it by force, then go ahead, but if you want to slander us while doing so, that is absolutely unacceptable. Lin Feng's face alternated between green and white. That damn Ji Changge was definitely doing this on purpose. Jiang Shuwan's expression was even more vivid than Lin Feng's. There was shame, there was awkwardness, and there was the embarrassment of being publicly exposed for lying. At that moment, she wished she could find a crack in the ground to hide in. She could sense that everyone's gaze toward her had changed, with some looking at her with disdain. Even Fu Qingye looked at her with some astonishment, as if surprised that she could lie. She had met Fu Qingye a few times before, and they had both left good impressions on each other, but now all of that was ruined. Jiang Shuwan bit her lip tightly, blaming that fool fourth senior brother. Lu Tingyun stepped forward, blocking Jiang Shuwan from those odd glances. But at that moment, Jiang Shuwan suddenly let out a sharp scream, startling Lu Tingyun. Stop! How can you absorb the fire glaze? That is mine. As they turned to look, they saw Yushi starting to absorb the fire glaze while everyone's attention was on the recording stone. This was something Ji Changge had just instructed her. Ignoring everything else, Jiang Shuwan flipped her wrist, and a long sword appeared in her hand, immediately stabbing fiercely at Yushi. Lin Feng followed closely behind. However, before they could get close, Su Hanyue swept her sword horizontally, not even needing to use any special techniques. Under the overwhelming sword energy, both Jiang Shuwan and Lin Feng were blown away like leaves in the wind. Lu Tingyun, still startled by Jiang Shuwan's scream, did not hesitate to leap forward, catching the flying Jiang Shuwan, while simultaneously blocking Su Hanyu's sword energy. Ji Changge couldn't help but marvel at the powerful attraction between the male and female leads. Even in such a situation, Fu Qingye could still lend a hand to Jiang Shuwan. However, Lin Feng was not so fortunate and fell flat on his face again. As Fu Qingye held Jiang Shuwan before he could stabilize himself, Ji Change's voice rang out. Your fire glaze. The truth is already clear. This fire glaze originally belongs to fifth senior sister. Do you still dare to be shameless? At this moment, Fu Qingye had released Jiang Shuwan. Upon hearing Ji Change's words, Jiang Shuwan's expression twisted for a moment before she quickly lowered her head, biting her lip tightly. Whatever you say goes. If you insist on taking my words out of context, then I have no way to refute it. In that state, one would think she had suffered a great injustice. Ji Changge, Lu Tingyun shouted loudly, sword in hand, pointing directly at Ji Changge. Even if you are expelled from the sect, you were once Shuwan's junior brother. How can you speak to her so harshly? Don't think that just because you have the Lihen sect backing you, I can do nothing to you. Apologize to Shuwan. And Jiang Yunqing coldly scoffed. Don't go around tying loose ends. Ji Changge is now our Lihen sect's junior brother and has nothing to do with your dance sect. Isn't it enough that your dance sect's direct disciple is acting like a lapdog for Jiang Shuwan? Do you want the entire cultivation world to fawn over your precious junior sister? However, you did say something correct. You really can't do anything to my junior brother. Before Lu Tingyun's furious shout could finish, Lin Feng behind him got up, not even thinking to cast a cleaning spell on himself, and rushed angrily toward Ji Changge. Ji Changge, you ungrateful little bastard. If it weren't for our dance sect. Before he could finish his sentence, a chilling glare from Su Hanyue and Jiang Yunqing swept over. Su Hanyue raised her hand and swung her sword mercilessly at Lin Feng. At the same time, Lu Tingyun moved, blocking in front of Lin Feng and intercepting Su Hanyu's sword. However, just as he blocked Su Hanyu's sword, a sound of an exploding talisman came from behind him, and a burst of spiritual energy shot out, turning into a palm that slapped Lin Feng hard. Lu Tingyun was also forced back several steps by Su Hanyu's sword. Although he had the same cultivation level as Su Hanyue, he primarily practiced alchemy with swordsmanship as a secondary focus, making it natural for him to fall short against a top-tier sword cultivator like her. Fu Qingye watched Su Hanyu's sword with bright eyes, as she was a worthy opponent. Jiang Yunqing flicked her wrist. My junior brother is someone you can insult. Ji Changge seized the opportunity. If you don't teach, it's the father's fault. You scolded me, but it's my fault. He had no choice. With his meager cultivation at the chi refining stage, he could only engage in verbal sparring in front of these golden core and nascent soul cultivators. Fortunately, a few senior sisters were protecting him. They couldn't do anything to him. Lin Feng could no longer hold back, roaring as he held his sword ready to charge at Ji Changge. But he was caught by the collar by senior brother Lu Tingyun. Don't get me wrong, Lu Tingyun didn't want to stop him. After all, they were all in their 20s, and their schemes wouldn't be too deep. Too much bullying. Lu Tingyun gritted his teeth and shouted, then waved his sleeve, unleashing a torrent of poison pills toward the people of the Lihen sect. There were all sorts of poisonous pills like poison mist pills, corpse decay pills, and pulse-devouring pills. The moment these pills were released, a green poisonous mist rose around, startling the nearby people from the unknown sword sect and the divine machine sect, who hurriedly retreated. Jiang Yunqing scattered a talisman from her hand, and while forming hand seals, the talismans immediately flew into action, swirling around their group without any wind. These talismans formed a talisman array, protecting them within, preventing the poison pills and toxic mist from encroaching even a bit. Occasionally a talisman would fall and Jiang Yunqing would throw out a new one to replenish it, indicating that maintaining this talisman array was quite taxing. At this moment, Lu Yiming, who had already stepped out of the battle circle, advised, I say you all shouldn't fight anymore. It's not worth making such a big fuss over a fire-type spirit herb, really not worth it. The key point is that Yushi had already begun absorbing the fire glaze. Even if they won the fight, it would be goodness with talismans and a sky full of poison pills. If they continued fighting, the resources consumed by both sides would match the value of the fire glaze. The master of the Divine Machine Sect specializes in crafting weapons and refining puppets, and like the fire-rooted cultivators, they hadn't fought so fiercely over it. Both sides are now at odds. Clearly no one is listening to him. No matter how he tries to maneuver with his charms, it proves futile. He exchanged a glance with Fu Qingye, both of them filled with helplessness. They have also realized that while the spark of conflict between the two parties was ignited by the fire glaze, the root cause lies in the little junior brothers and sisters of their respective sects. At this time, anyone who tries to mediate will probably be dragged into the fray alongside them. If they were to join forces with the Dan sect to attack the Lihen sect, they wouldn't have the special antidote pills needed to resist the overwhelming toxic gas. Lu Yiming shot a sideways glance and saw Jiang Shuwan still standing next to Fu Qingye, instinctively asking, is junior sister Jiang just going to watch? Everything is happening because of her. Her senior brothers are fighting for her, although she is merely at the foundation establishment stage and can do little. She should at least try to mediate. Seeing Fu Qingye looking at her, Jiang Shuwan glanced at the battle ahead, realizing she could no longer just. Jiang Shuwan swallowed an antidote pill and soared into the battlefield, a fiery feather hanging at her waist, soaring into the air, emanating the aura of divine phoenix fire. With the enhancement of this golden phoenix feather, the flames she unleashed carried a hint of divine phoenix fire as they surged towards the talisman formation of the Lihen sect members. Lu Yiming's eyes widened. It's the golden phoenix feather, the legendary feather of the divine beast, the phoenix, which contains the power of divine phoenix fire. I didn't expect this golden phoenix feather to be in the hands of junior sister Jiang, who has just reached the foundation establishment stage. The master of the Dan sect truly dotes on her. But did I mean for you to join the fight? I told you to mediate, not to jump into the fray. Forget it. Anyway, this is a matter between the Dan sect and the Lihen sect. Even if their heads turn into mush, it has nothing to do with the Shunji sect. Fu Qingye also gazed at the golden phoenix feather, but what he thought was that he didn't expect Jiang Shuwan to wield the golden phoenix feather with her early foundation establishment cultivation. She truly is extraordinary. Jiang Shuwan gritted her teeth, desperately urging the power of the phoenix feather. She knew Lu Yiming didn't mean it that way, but she was unwilling to let them take her things without a fight. The divine phoenix fire can ignite anything. With the enhancement of this golden phoenix feather, Jiang Yunqing's talismans were consumed at a faster rate. Although the talisman formation could block external attacks and toxic gas, it also meant they couldn't counterattack. Jiang Yunqing was outnumbered 3-1 and would eventually be worn down by the three opponents. She had many more powerful talismans to unleash, but those talismans required time to form. Su Hanyue also noticed the situation. Senior sister, withdraw the talisman formation to protect the little junior brother and junior sister. Let me go out and take them down. Just as Jiang Yunqing was also preparing to withdraw the formation to let her junior sister go, Ji Changge behind her said, Sister's junior sister, Wu has finished absorbing the fire glaze. After absorbing the fire glaze, Yu Zai's cultivation directly advanced from the early golden core stage to the mid-golden core stage. At this moment outside the talisman formation, green toxic mist spread, continuously eroding the formation. Jiang Shuwan was still attacking the formation, while Lin Feng protected her, and Lu Tingshan stood ready for the formation to be breached. But just then Jiang Shuwan discovered that her attacks had lost their point of impact, and Lu Tingshan also noticed that the toxic mist was no longer obstructed and was spreading forward. The talisman formation has disappeared, yet they didn't hear the sound of the formation breaking. Lu Tingshan realized something was wrong immediately, but before he could warn anyone, countless explosive talismans came hurtling toward them. With the toxic mist obscuring their view, he saw the explosive talismans just as they were upon him, detonating with a bang, leaving him no chance to react. The sound of the explosion erupted all at once, and Lu Tingshan was instantly engulfed by the blast. Meanwhile, Jiang Shuwan and Lin Feng, who were attacking the formation from above, were not faring any better as a wave of icy sword energy swept through the moment the formation vanished. It was the sword energy unleashed by Su Hanyue, who possessed ice spirit roots. Jiang Shuwan's flames were immediately dispersed. Although enhanced by the golden phoenix feather, she was merely at the foundation establishment stage. Even with Lin Feng's help, they could not withstand this sword energy. The two were instantly frozen into ice sculptures, rigidly falling from the air. Meanwhile, the explosions on Lu Tingshan's side also ceased, finally revealing his true appearance. At that moment, Lu Tingshan's red robe was already charred black, his face a true shade of black, as if it were the bottom of a pot, and his hair was in a frizz completely devoid of his usual arrogance. Heaven knows that Lu Yiming had thought through every sorrow in his life before barely managing to hold back his laughter. Even Fu Qingye couldn't help but twitch his lips. Their junior brothers trailing behind them couldn't contain their laughter and burst out. Lu Tingshan's expression darkened as he immediately cast a cleaning spell on himself, restoring his appearance. Damn Jiang Yunqing, everything happened too suddenly. By the time he gathered his spiritual energy to form a protective shield, several explosive talismans had already detonated right in front of his face, leaving no time for defense. If it weren't for the fact that his sect robe was a magical garment, he would have lost his clothes in the explosion. At this moment, the toxic mist had gradually dissipated, revealing no sign of the Lihen sect members ahead. He had never felt so humiliated in his life. Lihen sect, you are finished. Lu Tingshan's gaze was like a blade sweeping over the Xunji sect and Wuming sword sect disciples, who were already close to laughing until their stomachs hurt. The disciples of the two sects immediately silenced their laughter, their expressions serious, as if nothing had ever happened. Lu Yiming coughed. Lu Tingshan, you should take a look at your junior brothers and sisters. They've been frozen. At his reminder, Lu Tingshan finally noticed Lin Feng and his junior sister, who had collapsed to the ground, turned into ice sculptures. He grimaced and shouted at the few ordinary disciples of the Dan sect behind him. What are you still standing there for? Hurry and save them. The two were frozen by spiritual energy and they needed prompt rescue. Delaying could easily damage their meridians. A group of disciples snapped back to reality. Their cultivation level was still low, and unlike junior sister Jiang, who had magical treasures at her side, they had only been responsible for tossing poison pills from the back during the battle, and only now did they finally react. Everyone hurriedly infused fire energy into the two frozen ice sculptures, gradually restoring their body temperature to normal. The other two sects also couldn't just watch the commotion, so they left one after another. In a remote concealed area, 4 heads lined up, observing the scene ahead. Yushi gave a thumbs up. Little junior brother, you really are something. This method is quite devious. Ahem, clever. The other 2 senior sisters nodded in agreement. Just as the senior sister was about to suggest leaving, Ji Changge smiled mysteriously. It's not time yet. I have a strong feeling that something else will happen, and if we miss it, it would be a shame. Then Ji Changge led the 3 senior sisters quietly in the direction Fu Qingye had left. The 4 of them all applied the breath-holding talismans and stealthily followed behind Fu Qingye and his group from a distance. Fu Qingye's cultivation was exceptional, and they dared not get too close, only able to trail behind. Jiang Yunqing felt a pang of regret. She had already used many talismans today, which were all spirit stones. However, to protect her junior brother and 5th junior sister, it was worth it. Yushi lowered her voice and asked Ji Changge, junior brother, why are we following the people from the Nameless Sword sect? They are sneaking around behind them, looking like they are up to no good, but shouldn't junior brother target the people from the Pill sect? Ji Changge did not answer, but instead thoughtfully asked several senior sisters, what is your impression of Fu Qingye? Although they are all from the 6 major sects and must have known Fu Qingye before, he still wanted to probe into their impressions of him to plan effectively later and avoid repeating past mistakes. Following the Nameless Sword sect, the junior brother's inquiry about Fu Qingye did not surprise them. The 2nd senior sister directly replied, blind as a bat, but very strong, worth fighting. Indeed, in the eyes of the 2nd senior sister, everyone outside the sect is an opponent with only strength distinguishing them. He thought that if the 2nd senior sister met a domineering CEO from a romance novel, she might feel like she had found a soulmate. Very well, keep it up. No wonder even Long Outyin couldn't charm this female tyrant. Blindness naturally referred to him protecting Jiang Shuwen, even if it was just a brief interaction. Yushi pondered, although he is quite handsome and fits my aesthetic perfectly, he is indeed blind. The rest remains to be observed. That woman Jiang Shuwen not only tried to take her fire Liuli, but also attempted to frame them. She dislikes anyone who befriends her. At this moment, she was unaware of Jiang Shuwen's past schemes against Ji Changge. If she had known, she would have hated Jiang Shuwen even more. Jiang Yunxing felt it was inappropriate to comment on others behind their backs, and replied rather formally. The chief of the Nameless Sword Sect has long been renowned. I've interacted with him a few times, and he is indeed. Upon hearing the responses from the senior sisters, Ji Changge felt reassured. Currently, none of the three senior sisters had any special feelings for Fu Qingye. The fifth senior sister, who should have been most infatuated with him, had lost her rose-tinted glasses due to the absence of a hero-saving beauty scenario, and with him assisting Jiang Shuwen, it was impressive that she didn't dislike him. With him around, there would be no chance for the senior sisters to develop feelings for Fu Qingye. Fu Qingye did not lead the people of the Nameless Sword Sect directly down the mountain, but continued searching on the mountain, hoping to find other types of spiritual plants since they were already there. The people from the other three sects probably had not left either, as no one would be willing to make the trip for nothing. The four of them followed Fu Qingye for a long while before they noticed the Nameless Sword Sect suddenly stop ahead. From another direction, the people from the Pill Sect also arrived and halted. Before both groups, a wood-type spiritual plant radiating a green glow was quietly growing. Those from the Lihen sect trailing behind also sensed the aura of the wood-type spiritual plant. Jiang Yunxing's eyes brightened. It's a wood-type spiritual plant. Great. The fire Liuli had been absorbed by the fifth junior sister. They thought this time the junior brother would return empty-handed, but unexpectedly, a wood-type spiritual plant appeared. Based on this aura, it seemed even purer than the previous fire Liuli. Yushi felt somewhat regretful. It's a pity that none of us have wood spiritual roots. Otherwise, taking advantage of this perfect opportunity, while they are in a standoff, we should seize it. When disciples from the 6 major sects venture out, if they encounter treasures, they can compete for anything that has not yet been obtained based on their abilities. However, once something is obtained, it cannot be snatched away. This understanding is tacit among the 6 major sects, although there are no explicit regulations. This rule is generally respected. Jiang Yunxing smiled. Who says there are no with spiritual roots? The junior brother has 5 elemental spiritual roots, and this spiritual plant is just right for him. Yushi was shocked. 5 elemental spiritual roots. Is that what I think it means? 5 elemental roots are considered trash roots, aren't they? Yushi felt some regret. It's a pity I absorbed that fire Liuli, otherwise I could have given it to the junior brother as a meeting gift. If the junior brother's fire spiritual root were stronger, he could focus on cultivating it. Even if his cultivation was insufficient for fighting, specializing in alchemy would still be beneficial. However, this wood-type spiritual plant is also good. The junior brother could become a healing cultivator responsible for healing them. With this in mind, Yushi clenched her fists. They must have this wood-type spiritual plant. Ji Changge was completely indifferent. That fire Liuli was something you fifth senior sister worked hard to obtain. It should naturally be absorbed by you. Besides, the meeting gift from the second senior sister was also a fire-type spiritual plant. This wood-type spiritual plant is just right for me. What are they doing? The spiritual plant is right in front of them. Why aren't they making a move? Su Hanyue was puzzled. If the Pill Sect was hesitant because they feared Fu Qingye, then what were the Nameless Sword Sect waiting for? She was waiting to take advantage of the moment when both sides acted to strike and seize the wood-type spiritual plant. Others were also somewhat confused as both sides seemed to be discussing something, showing no signs of action for the time being. Ji Changge knew the plot here. Fu Qingye did not need this wood-type spiritual plant, and no one among the direct disciples of the Nameless Sword Sect had wood spiritual roots. He and Jiang Shuwen had already developed feelings for each other, so he decided to let Jiang Shuwen have the wood-type spiritual plant. This also laid the foundation for Jiang Shuwen's future title as the #1 healing cultivator in the cultivation world. Ji Changge would naturally not miss such a great opportunity to make Fu Qingye look bad. It seems Fu Qingye has no intention of taking this spiritual plant. He probably wants to give it to Jiang Shuwen. At this moment, after a standoff between the two sects, seeing that the opponent knew she was a dual fire and with spiritual root, but remained silent, Jiang Shuwen had to speak up first. Fu Shixiang, you know I am a dual fire and with spiritual root, and the fire-type spiritual plant has already been snatched. This wood-type spiritual plant. If it were under the original favorable impression Fu Qingye had of Jiang Shuwen, he would certainly give this wood-type spiritual plant to her, since neither he nor the junior brothers could use it. However, due to what happened today, his perception of Jiang Shuwen had shattered a layer. At this moment, he was somewhat reluctant to hand over the wood-type spiritual plant to her. Although they could not use it, they could sell it. The disciples of the Nameless Sword Sect were all sword cultivators, and their finances were tight. This wood-type spiritual plant represented considerable wealth for them. The few junior brothers behind him were also furious, but dared not express it. How could Jiang Shuwan be so brazen asking for such a valuable wood-type spiritual plant? But they all knew that their senior brother seemed to hold this Jiang Shimi in high regard and did not dare to speak out. Jiang Shimi, we also. Before he could finish speaking, Jiang Shuwan urgently interrupted. Fu Shixiang, I can buy it. I can purchase it at market price. Please, Fu Shixiang, let it go. Jiang Shuwan's hand hidden under her sleeve was clenched tightly. The value of this wood-type spiritual plant was enough to drain her savings, and thinking of this made her heart ache. Fu Qingye usually appeared so unattainable, but in the end, he was still a mercenary commoner. Lu Tingyan also stated, yes, let's consider this wood-type spiritual plant as purchased by our pill sect. They lacked spirit stones the least, and if it really came to a fight, he was not confident he could outmaneuver Fu. As he flew out, Ji Changge felt the icy spiritual power from the kick that struck him. Second senior sister, it must be you. Ji Changge landed precisely in the closest position to the wood-type spiritual plant, and a surge of spiritual power gently cushioned his landing, preventing him from getting hurt. After all, with his current cultivation at the first layer of Qi refinement, he was essentially an ordinary person. Once on the ground, Ji Changge wasted no time and quickly sat cross-legged to absorb the wood-type spiritual plant. The two sides that were originally in confrontation only felt a white shadow flash before their eyes. Something zipped past, and upon focusing they realized it was Ji Changge from the Lihen sect. The members of the Dan sect were furious as they were negotiating with Fu Qingye, only to be unexpectedly interrupted by Ji Changge's brazen intrusion. The members of the Nameless Sword sect were equally enraged. Just when they were about to secure the spirit stones, someone had the audacity to intervene. Without hesitation, both sides drew their swords, simultaneously lunging at Ji Changge. However, as their swords thrust forward, a light barrier suddenly appeared around Ji Changge, with countless talismans swirling to block their attacks, ensuring that none of them could harm him. This was the talisman array that Ji Changge had previously instructed his senior sister to prepare. As Ji Changge landed, Jiang Yunqing's talisman array came crashing down, shielding him. Everyone gritted their teeth in anger. In the next moment, a chilling sword aura swept through, pushing back those who attempted to charge forward, while Su Hanyue and the others stood guard in front of the talisman array. Su Hanyue pointed her sword towards the ground. If you wish to harm my junior brother, you must first get past us. Jiang Shuan, infuriated, screamed in anger, no longer caring to maintain her facade. Wretched person, you have already taken the fire Liuli, what more do you want? Now you even wish to steal my wood-type spiritual plant. Return my spiritual plants to me, or I will not let you go. Yushi felt an innate aversion towards Jiang Shuwan and immediately mocked her. Do you have no shame? Are the spiritual plants growing on the mountain now your possessions? If you have the ability, come and steal it. If not, stop embarrassing yourself here. Jiang Shuwan nearly ground her silver teeth to dust. If she were not afraid of you, she would have loved to poke several holes in her. Seeing their little junior sister being bullied, the members of the Dan sect could no longer tolerate it. Under Lu Tingyan's command, countless poison pills were hurled towards them. Simply throwing poison pills would not quell their anger, and many disciples, after taking antidotes, charged forward with swords drawn. However, Jiang Yunqing was well prepared. At the moment the opponent threw the poison pills, a talisman array appeared before several of them, blocking all the poison pills and toxins from the outside. Moreover, this time the preparation was thorough. The barrier of the array was one way, allowing their attacks to reach the opponent while preventing the opponent's attacks from coming through. Su Hanyue swung her sword, creating a patch of frost on the ground, forcing the members of the Dan sect to retreat. Just then Fu Qingye also moved, flipping his right hand to reveal a sheathed long sword. With a whoosh, the long sword was unsheathed, and Fu Qingye struck directly at the talisman array. The arrogance of the Lihen sect was intolerable. They dared to steal even his spiritual stones. Fu Qingye's spirit root is the only one among the 9 spirit roots that does not possess an elemental attribute, but rather is a sword spirit root. The sword spirit root is a mutated spirit root, and even among mutated roots, it is a rare existence. Those with a sword spirit root are born sword cultivators, possessing an absolute advantage in the path of the sword. The attack power of the sword spirit root can even rival that of the thunder spirit root, making it one of the top existences among the 9 spirit roots. With this strike, Fu Qingye aimed at Jiang Yunqing's talisman array, unsure if it could withstand his blow. Su Hanyue naturally could not allow that to happen. She swiftly appeared in front of Fu Qingye, blocking his strike with her sword. Both of them were filled with combat intent. They exchanged glances and simultaneously launched their attacks. As sword prodigies, every strike they made was astonishing. The two engaged in an exceptionally fierce battle from the outset, neither side yielding, both unleashing their full strength. Their rapid-fire sword techniques dazzled the spectators. Fu Qingye, the fated child, could see that Su Hanyue was slightly at a disadvantage, but restraining Fu Qingye was still not a problem. Fu Qingye's eyes sparkled. Although if he used all his means, the top disciples from the other sects could exchange blows with him, that would only be under circumstances where they had employed various means to bolster their strength. When fighting against them, Fu Qingye always felt restrained, unable to fully unleash his power. Su Hanyue was the first among his peers who could truly compete with him on the sword path. Only by fighting her did Fu Qingye feel a sense of exhilaration in battle. The last time they fought was over 4 years ago during the sect competition. Nearly 5 years had passed, and Fu Qingye thought he could leave her behind, only to realize that Su Hanyu's progress was not any less than his. Although the strongest Fu Qingye was entangled, the remaining disciples of the Nameless Sword Sect also joined the fray against Jiang Yunqing and her companion. As the opponent's assault intensified, Jiang Yunqing's talisman array was nearing its breaking point. She suddenly soared into the air, waving her sleeves, causing an ancient zither to hover in front of her. As her fingers plucked the strings, a melody resonated. Simultaneously, a wave of soul energy rippled out with the music, causing some lower-level disciples to clutch their heads in agony. Even Fu Qingye furrowed his brow, enduring the discomfort, his attacks no longer as fierce as before, instantly being suppressed by Su Hanyue. Yushi and Su Hanyue were unaffected. Yushi swiftly darted through the crowd, her figure flickering in and out of sight, and in the blink of an eye she knocked out several disciples. This was a soul attack directly targeting the opponent's soul. Soul attacks can selectively target individuals, usually being single-target. Group attacks like Jiang Yunqing's were quite rare. This attack was lethal to others, but it had little effect on Lu Tingyun. Alchemy requires extremely strong soul power to control the spiritual plants within the cauldron, so alchemists possess powerful soul energy. Below the same realm, Jiang Yunqing's soul attack could do nothing against Lu Tingyun. Lu Tingyun swung her sword, and boundless flames enveloped the sword, chi charging straight at Jiang Yunqing. Jiang Yunqing threw a talisman, and torrents of water surged forth, blocking Lu Tingyun's attack. However, Lu Tingyun's strike successfully interrupted Jiang Yunqing's soul attack, allowing the others to recover and immediately begin to besiege Yushi. The battle between Lu Tingyun and Jiang Yunqing at the nascent soul stage was beyond their participation. They could only deal with Yushi. Yushi could hardly hold her ground amid so many pursuers. She dashed wildly across the arena, evading capture. Were it not for her wind spirit root, she would have been seized and brutally beaten long ago. Jun, a direct disciple of the Nameless Sword Sect, charged forward with sword drawn, joining Lu Tingyun in a coordinated assault against Jiang Yunqing. Though only at the late Golden Core realm, Jun was a sword cultivator, naturally formidable in combat. Together with Lu Tingyun, he overwhelmed Jiang Yunqing, forcing her into relentless retreat and leaving her no opportunity to unleash soul force attacks. Jun had originally sought fire affinity spirit plants, but the Lihen sect had snatched them first. Now even the wood affinity specimens had fallen into their hands. He could not swallow this humiliation. Come then, let us wound each other. Since they had seized the spirit plants, he would ensure they suffered equally. In moments, chaos erupted. Disciples of the Pill Sect and the Nameless Sword Sect chased Yushi and Jiang Yunqing relentlessly across the arena. Su Hanyue locked in fierce combat, with Fu Qingye had no room to spare attention elsewhere. When others attempted to strike the formation shielding Ji Changge, they were violently repelled. As Ji Changge continuously absorbed the wood affinity spirit plant, his cultivation surged, leaping 3 minor realms from Qi refinement level 1 to level 4. Jiang Shuwen, who had remained motionless until now, fixed her gaze upon Ji Changge, eyes closed in absorption, her expression venomous. This moment, this power should have been hers alone. Suddenly, she unleashed the golden phoenix feather once more, the searing flames surging toward the protective formation around Ji Changge. Enraged, Jiang Shuwen struck with full force. The other Lihen sect cultivators cried out in alarm and rushed to intervene. Yet all were embroiled in their own dire straits. None possessed the capacity to halt Jiang Shuwen. Within the formation, Ji Changge continued absorbing the spirit plant utterly undisturbed. After precisely 1/4, Ji Changge fully absorbed the spirit plant before him, and his cultivation stabilized at Qi refinement level 5. At the very instant his eyes opened, the formation shielding him shattered under Jiang Shuwen's assault. A formation that even Lu Tingyun, a nascent soul cultivator, could not breach, had just been shattered by Jiang Shuwen, a mere foundation establishment initiate. It was not due to superior strength, but to the extraordinary power of the golden phoenix feather in her hand. The divine phoenix flame truly lived up to its name. Even a single feather imbued with its essence wielded overwhelming might. Without pause, Jiang Shuwen drew her blade, its tip aimed unerringly at Ji Changge. Flames roared along the length of her sword as it streaked toward Ji Changge, her strike radiating power far beyond that of an ordinary foundation establishment initiate. That wretched bastard Ji Changge, time and again stealing what was rightfully hers. She would see him dead. The turn of events unfolded too swiftly. By the time the Lihen sect senior sisters realized Jiang Shuwen's lethal intent, they were all entangled in battle. utterly unable to reach him in time. Little senior brother. Their voices cracked with anguish as they cried out in unison. At that very instant, Ji Changge moved, his five-element radiant fan appearing in hand, instantly transforming into a gleaming longsword. Jiang Shuan felt snowflakes drifting through the air, each petal shimmering with lethal intent. Then a blinding sword light slashed across her vision, radiant as the Milky Way cascading from the heavens, descending upon her without mercy. The sheer magnitude of that strike left Jiang Shuan trembling inwardly. Instantly, she channeled every ounce of the golden phoenix feather's power into her dark-forged sword and met Ji Changge's blade Heiden. At the moment their weapons collided, flames erupted from Jiang Shuan's sword, while Ji Changge's blades surged forth with an endless torrent of water. Ji Changge knew Jiang Shuan cultivated the fire spirit root, and thus countered with the water spirit roots. Water and fire erupted in tandem. Yet Jiang Shuan sensed something more beneath the watery torrent. Countless stellar energies coalesced within Ji Changge's strike. With a thunderous boom, Jiang Shuan was hurled backward 10 meters. All present stood stunned. Even Ji Changge himself had not anticipated such devastating force from his own technique. Jiang Shuan was no ordinary Foundation establishment initiate. Ji Changge realized his victory stemmed not only from wielding a celestial tier sword art, but also from the profound enhancement granted by his weapon. The five-element radiant fan amplified his water spirit root's power to 120 of its natural potential, whereas Jiang Shuan's dark-forged sword offered no such advantage. This was still early. Ji Changge had only just broken through, and his command over this new realm remained imperfect. Yet he was certain once fully attuned to its power, Jiang Shuan would stand no chance against him. Seizing the stunned silence, the senior sisters rushed to Ji Changge's side, forming a protective ring around him. They examined him thoroughly front and back, only relaxing when assured he bore no injury. Even they had not foreseen such prowess in their little junior brother, defeating Jiang Shuan outright. Jiang Shuan staggered upright some distance away, disheveled and shaken. A celestial tier sword art. How is it possible? You, a favelamentrit chi refinement cultivator deemed worthless. How could you possibly master such a supreme art? Her outcry voiced the disbelief echoing in every onlooker's mind. After all, even among their sect's elders, few golden core or nascent soul cultivators could manifest celestial tier arts. How then could a mere chi refinement practitioner achieve such mastery? Had Jiang Shuan remained silent, perhaps matters would have stayed contained. But the moment those words left her lips, Jiang Yunqing Yushi and Su Hanyue turned upon her with glacial fury. You seek death. Su Hanyue's voice cut like ice. Without hesitation, she raised her sword and struck. With no restraint held back, her nascent soul power erupted in full force. Jiang Shuan, at only Foundation establishment, stood utterly defenseless, not even able to evade. The Pill Sect disciples were still too distant to intervene. Jiang Shuan paled terror, seizing her feet. Just as the blade neared Jiang Shuan's throat, a figure clad in violet sect robes stepped between them, taking the full force of Su Hanyue's strike. It was Fu Qingye. Ji Changge was unsurprised. After all, protagonists invariably gravitated toward one another with inexplicable magnetism. The Pill Sect disciples now gathered around Jiang Shuan, but she immediately rushed to Fu Qingye's side, clutching his sleeve. Senior brother Fu, this woman tried to kill me. Had you not intervened, I might already be dead. How vicious and ruthless they are. Fu Qingye's brow furrowed faintly. Though instinct had driven him to shield Jiang Shuan, he had witnessed everything unfold clearly. It was Jiang Shuan who had struck first, seeking Ji Changge's life. In the cultivation world, combat was commonplace. Fu Qingye would not have objected. But to distort truth so brazenly, did she truly believe everyone else a fool? Before Fu Qingye could speak further, Su Hanyue leveled her sword at him, her glare burning with righteous fury. Fu Qingye, if you are resolved to protect Jiang Shuan, then let us settle this here and now. Not only she, but Jiang Yunqing and Yushi likewise readied themselves to strike. At that precise moment, a thunderous roar echoed from afar, accompanied by a crushing aura that made every cultivator's heart tremble. The members of the Lihen sect who were confronting the other two sects sensed something unusual behind them and suddenly turned around. At that moment, a silver-white wolf demon leaped before them from an unknown place. As the wolf demon landed, the ground trembled. Su Hanyue and Jiang Yunqing quickly pulled Ji Changge to retreat, swiftly joining the others from the two sects. At this moment, they could not care about past grievances. The appearance of the wolf demon sent chills down everyone's spine. Its cold gaze was fixed on the crowd, its body coiled with power, seemingly ready to strike at any moment. This wolf demon was entirely silver-white, with a crescent moon pattern on its forehead, precisely the sixth-tier demon beast, the silver moon sky wolf. A sixth-tier demon beast is equivalent to a human cultivator at the early stage of the void transformation. Though there were many people present, the highest cultivation level among them was only at the nascent soul stage. Even if the demon beast's attack methods were singular, its physical strength was formidable, and its power was a full realm above that of the strongest among them, Su Hanyue and the others. If they were not careful today, it was likely that all of them would meet their end here. At this moment, even Jiang Shuwan had no mind to care for Ji Changge. She simply watched the demon beast ahead with fear in her eyes. Ji Changge was not surprised by the appearance of this demon beast. In the original plot, Jiang Shuwan absorbed this wood-type spiritual herb, which summoned the Silver Moon Sky Wolf. Fu Qingye took the lead, guiding everyone through countless hardships to ultimately slay the Silver Moon Sky Wolf. Jiang Shuwan used the power of her wood's spiritual roots to continuously heal everyone and occasionally assisted with the golden phoenix feathers, playing a crucial role. It was this battle that made the male and female leads famous and deepened their relationship. The male lead, Fu Qingye, greatly admired Jiang Shuwan's courage and determination. However, this battle also left everyone severely injured, and they only fully recovered by the time of the Sixth Sect Grand Competition 6 months later. Now, because their side had the variable of Ji Changge along with 2 nascent soul experts, the elder sister and second sister, capturing this demon beast should be somewhat easier than before. But that was only somewhat. Just as Ji Changge was pondering how to capture the demon beast with minimal losses, the Silver Moon Sky Wolf moved. Its figure transformed into a streak of light, charging towards the crowd. At the instant the Silver Moon Sky Wolf acted, the members of the major sects also sprang into action. Su Hanyue and Fu Qingye struck together, blocking the Silver Moon Sky Wolf Heiden. Though they were both swordsmanship geniuses capable of challenging higher realms, they were still at the early stage of the nascent soul, which was a full realm below the demon beast. Even with their combined strength, it was still too much of a stretch. When the Silver Moon Sky Wolf swung a paw, the two were forced back, repeatedly struggling to suppress the surging blood and qi within. Fortunately, Lu Tingyun and the other sword cultivators followed closely behind, but everyone worked together to temporarily halt the Silver Moon Sky Wolf's assault. Fu Qingye and Su Hanyue both stopped their retreat, their swords glowing with vibrant energy as they struck towards the Silver Moon Sky Wolf. Su Hanyue's sword aura carried a chilling intent, while Fu Qingye's sword aura maximized the sharpness of his blade, cutting through anything. As Su Hanyu's sword aura sliced through the Silver Moon Sky Wolf, was momentarily frozen. Though it quickly regained its movement, it was still struck by Fu Qingye's sword aura. With this strike, Fu Qingye cut through the Silver Moon Sky Wolf's fur, leaving a bloody mark on its forelimb. However, this minor injury did not affect the Silver Moon Sky Wolf, who instead it enraged the beast, causing it to erupt in fury. As the Silver Moon Sky Wolf roared in anger, a light barrier suddenly rose around it, with numerous talismans swirling and flying. It was the only talisman master present, Jiang Yunqing, who took action. After forming the talisman array, she immediately waved her hand, and an ancient zither floated before her. With a delicate pluck of her fingers, a soul force attack shot straight towards the Silver Moon Sky Wolf. Jiang Yunqing's talisman array was unidirectional. Attacks from the outside could pass through unhindered, but those from within could not escape. Although Jiang Yunqing's soul force attack was formidable, the Silver Moon Sky Wolf was a 6th-tier demon beast. While its soul power was inferior to that of cultivators, its inherent strength was undeniable. Jiang Yunqing's attack merely provoked a low growl from it, slowing its movements slightly. At the same moment Jiang Yunqing acted, the members of the Dan sect under Lin Feng's leadership began tossing out highly potent poison pills without restraint. The disciples of the Nameless Sword sect also unleashed their sword energy into the talisman array. Although there were disparities in strength among the disciples of various sects, none were lacking in talent. They grasped the timing of the battle exceptionally well, and the ordinary disciples simply followed their respective elite disciples to engage. Seeing the Silver Moon Sky Wolf trapped, Ji Changge leaped forward and unleashed a snowfall and starry river strike. However, this move, while a supreme skill, was not powerful enough due to Ji Changge's cultivation being at the 5th level of qi refinement. Lin Feng gritted his teeth. Fool. Your big move can't inflict any harm on this 6th-tier demon beast. You'll rapidly deplete your own energy. Oh, after 2 uses you won't have any strength left. Use regular moves to wear down this beast first. They were numerous. Even using only ordinary moves would be enough to make the demon beast drink from the cup. Once it was sufficiently worn down, they could begin their fierce assault. Ji Changge couldn't even be bothered to glance at him, calmly tossing out another snowfall and starry river strike without breaking a sweat. You call this a big move? I only know this move. To me, it is an ordinary tactic. What you consider a big move is just a basic attack from me. He didn't feel any consumption at all. Lin Feng was left speechless. After Ji Changge had thrown out the snowfall and starry river 3 times, the Silver Moon Sky Wolf finally erupted, smashing its paw down on the talisman array that had confined it. All the cultivators attacking it were sent flying. The nascent soul cultivators at the front all spat out blood from their mouths, clearly injured. The Silver Moon Sky Wolf charged straight at Fu Qingye, remembering that it was this person who had cut it earlier. Fu Qingye was alarmed and quickly got up to defend. After landing, Ji Changge did not even bother to get up. He used the power of the wood's spiritual roots to heal the second sister. The injuries on her body began to slowly recover. However, due to Ji Changge's low cultivation level, even with the enhancement of 5 spiritual roots, he could only heal external wounds and could not restore spiritual energy and stamina. Noticing that her injuries were healing, Su Hanyue looked at her junior brother in surprise. How had she forgotten that her junior brother had with spiritual roots and could heal her? Wasn't this equivalent to having a mobile blood bag with her? While Ji Changge was healing Su Hanyue, the Silver Moon Sky Wolf seemed to have set its sights on Fu Qingye, relentlessly pursuing him. Fu Qingye was beaten back, repeatedly blood spewing from his mouth. The disciples of the Nameless Sword Sect who rushed to help their senior brother were all sent flying by a single paw from the Silver Moon Sky Wolf. Having slightly recovered, Su Hanyue stood up to assist Fu Qingye, but it was too late. The Silver Moon Sky Wolf's paw was about to land on Fu Qingye's head. At that moment, a puppet appeared before Fu Qingye, kicking him in the chest and sending him flying. Meanwhile, the puppet was shattered by the Silver Moon Sky Wolf's violent paw. The Silver Moon Wolf was currently entangled by over a dozen puppets. Upon seeing these puppets, everyone knew that the people from the Divine Machine Sect had arrived. There was no time to ask questions. Everyone joined forces to attack the Silver Moon Wolf. The people from the Nameless Sword Sect caught Fu Qingye and placed him aside before joining the assault. Fu Qingye turned his head to glance at Lu Yiming, who was directing the disciples to attack, feeling a wave of fear in his heart. If it weren't for the timely arrival of the Divine Machine Sect, he would have been gravely injured, if not dead. At this moment, Jiang Shuwan finally remembered to utilize the power of the wood's spiritual root. She poured the healing power of the wood's spiritual root entirely onto Fu Qingye. A green light flickered around Fu Qingye, and he immediately felt a warm flow spreading throughout his body as his injuries began to heal slowly. He instinctively looked at Jiang Shuwan, who was radiating green light, as she treated Fu Qingye. Seeing that the battlefield could still hold up due to the involvement of the Divine Machine Sect, Fu Qingye decided to focus on recovering his injuries. After all, in his current state, rushing into the fray would not make much of a difference. At this moment on the battlefield, the sword cultivators, led by Su Hanyue and the puppets from the Divine Machine Sect, stood at the forefront. It must be said that the puppets from the Divine Machine Sect were truly remarkable. They inflicted no harm and felt no pain. Unless they were completely destroyed, no means could stop them from attacking. The disciples of the Divine Machine Sect stood at the back of the line, wielding a variety of magical tools, attacking the Silver Moon Wolf from a distance. The Divine Machine Sect specialized in the art of artifact forging and puppet creation, possessing an astonishing array of magical tools. The alchemists from the Pill Sect were throwing out poisonous pills as if they were free, healing their injuries with medicine. Zhang Yunqing's talismans were also being scattered in handfuls, while Yushi stood at the back, continuously firing a crossbow. By this point, nearly everyone on their side was injured, especially the sword cultivators at the front. Ji Changge's with spiritual root power was continuously outputting, healing several of the senior sisters, particularly the second senior sister at the forefront, whose injuries were the most severe. Most of Ji Changge's strength was focused on her. Although Ji Changge's low cultivation meant her effects were limited, it was still better than nothing. Furthermore, if any of the Nameless Sword Sect disciples were overwhelmed, Ji Changge would also provide timely assistance. After all, they were all on the same front now. In the midst of the fighting, Lin Feng frowned at his senior brother. Lu Tingyun, who was at the forefront, had no time to even take medicine, while Su Hanyue was enveloped in the healing power of the wood's spiritual root. The treatment disparity was simply glaring. Lin Feng shouted at Ji Changge, "You're only taking care of your Li Henzong senior sisters. Can't you see how badly injured my senior brother is? Hurry up and treat my senior brother." Ji Changge didn't even glance at him. "If I'm not taking care of my own senior sister, why should I care about you? Whether you live or die has nothing to do with me. The most important thing is to take care of my own senior sister. If Lu Tingyun needs treatment, of course I should go find your precious junior sister. Oh, I forgot your precious junior sister is currently treating Fu Qingye, so I can't be bothered with your lives." Hearing Ji Changge's words, Lin Feng was furious, but instinctively began searching for Jiang Shuwan. In the chaos, he hadn't noticed where his junior sister was. However, before he could find Jiang Shuwan, Fu Qingye had already charged towards the Silver Moon Wolf with his sword. The green light swirling around him was exceptionally glaring. With Fu Qingye's forceful addition, he and Su Hanyue formed a powerful alliance, completely restraining the Silver Moon Wolf with the assistance of the others. At this moment, the disciples of the Pill Sect also noticed that Jiang Shuwan's wood healing power was continuously flowing towards Fu Qingye. The green light surrounding Fu Qingye was even stronger than that of Su Hanyue. Lin Feng couldn't help but shout, "Junior sister, my senior brother can barely hold on. Treat him." Jiang Shuwan did not immediately agree, but weighed her options. Currently, Fu Qingye's state had not yet recovered. He was the main force restraining the Silver Moon Wolf, and my senior brother's injuries were not something that could be healed quickly. If something were to happen to Fu Qingye, they might all die here, and she did not wish to perish. Jiang Shuan gritted her teeth and said, "Fourth senior brother, there are pills with my senior brother. Use them first to hold on. I can only treat one person at a time. If something happens to Fu senior brother, we are all in danger." Lin Feng was taken aback. If my senior brother had the time to take pills, would he even need to call for the junior sister? Moreover, even Ji Changge, that useless person, could treat several people at once. How could the junior sister not be able to? After Fu Qingye joined, the pressure on everyone was significantly reduced. As Jiang Shuan's words fell, Lu Tingyun also withdrew from the battlefield. He first glanced at Jiang Shuan before swallowing several pills and meditating to recover his injuries. At that moment, Ji Changge, who had been at the back, suddenly shouted, "Second senior sister, Fu senior brother, you focus all your efforts on restraining the Silver Moon Wolf. I am going to make my move." Su Hanyue, unsure of what Ji Changge was planning, still complied and attacked with all her might. Jiang Yinqing and Yushi also did not hold back, unleashing their most powerful techniques. Jiang Shuan frowned. "Ji Changge, do you still want to show off at this time? Don't act recklessly. What can you do at the qi refining stage? Don't recklessly try to show strength and endanger us." Before she could finish her sentence, she saw Ji Changge take out a talisman and stick it onto himself, his aura beginning to rise dramatically. He directly soared past the qi refining stage and stopped at the peak of foundation establishment. Is this a true martial talisman? Jiang Shuan's eyes widened as she saw Ji Changge charge out. She coldly scoffed in her heart, thinking that it was pointless to give good advice to a dead man. Did he think that just because he used a true martial talisman and temporarily boosted his cultivation to the peak of foundation establishment, he could wreak havoc? Ignorant, he should have considered the cultivation levels of those present. Well, if Ji Changge dies at the hands of this beast, it would save her a lot of trouble. The others were also unaware of what Ji Changge was doing. However, they were all focused on restraining the beast and had no time to care for him. Moreover, as he was not even taking care of his own sect's senior sister, they did not want to meddle. Ji Changge circled around to the back of the Silver Moon Wolf, seizing the opportunity to unleash a long-prepared Snowfall Galaxy attack. However, he did not dare to get too close to the Silver Moon Wolf. With his cultivation, even if he reached foundation establishment, he would still be at risk. He swung his long sword with great force. The sword directly pierced into the Silver Moon Wolf's rear. With Ji Change's current cultivation, he could not injure the Silver Moon Wolf. In fact, a single slap from it could kill him. However, the 5 elements flowing light fan transformed into a long sword was no ordinary weapon. It could still penetrate the most vulnerable spot of the Silver Moon Wolf. Whether human or beast, this place was undoubtedly extremely weak. The sword chi surged wildly into the Silver Moon Wolf's body. The Silver Moon Wolf let out a heart-rending screech, causing the unprepared crowd in front to experience a moment of darkness and stagger backward. The Silver Moon Wolf leaped into the air, its cries echoing for a long time, a sound that was painful to hear. Ji Change's cultivation was limited. Even with the true martial talisman, he could not inflict significant damage on the Silver Moon Wolf, but it was certainly in pain. When the Silver Moon Wolf landed again, it was still writhing in pain. Everyone took the opportunity to rush forward and unleash a barrage of attacks on it without restraint. Some of the unscrupulous ones directly attacked the spot where Ji Changge had just stabbed. After an unknown amount of time, everyone finally ceased their attacks, and the Silver Moon Wolf had long since passed away. Those who knew what had happened took a step back, looking at Ji Changge with strange expressions. The others, unaware of what had transpired, wondered how Ji Change's meager cultivation could have rendered this beast unable to resist with just one strike. This was unreasonable. Everyone immediately approached to examine the beast's corpse, eager to discover how Ji Changge had accomplished this. When the crowd saw the unspeakable wound on the Silver Moon Wolf, everyone twitched at the corners of their mouths, feeling a chill in their hearts. No wonder this beast cried out so tragically. It must be in tremendous pain. After a moment of deathly silence, Su Hanyue gave Ji Changge a thumbs up. "Well done, junior brother." Ji Changge smiled. Everyone was puzzled as they caught a hint of lewdness in Ji Change's youthful face at that moment. Everyone felt a tightness in their lower backs. Jiang Shuan stood to the side, watching everyone's attention focused on Ji Changge, her fingers tightening slightly. That damn Ji Changge, why does he always steal the spotlight whenever he appears? It should have been her, as the most. Clearly her healing power was more effective than Ji Change's, and she was a top-tier dual spiritual root genius. Why was all the attention now on Ji Changge, a useless 5-spirit root? Even if he could release multiple healing energies simultaneously, it must be because he stole her wood-based spiritual plant. All this attention should have belonged to her. Seeing Jiang Shuan's unpleasant expression, no one from the Dan sect approached to comfort her. Lu Tingyun was closing his eyes to heal, and Lin Feng, for some unknown reason, did not come to comfort her as he usually did. The other ordinary disciples were already somewhat dissatisfied with Jiang Shuan after the earlier battle. In such a critical moment, the junior sister actually ignored her fellow disciple to help Fu Qingye. Moreover, when senior brother Lin reminded her, she even refused. At this moment, Jiang Shuwan was immersed in her own world, completely unaware that her fellow disciples were quite critical of her. Lu Yiming looked at the corpse of the sixth-tier beast on the ground. Since this beast has been dealt with, let's discuss the distribution of its body. The corpse of a sixth-tier beast is a treasure, whether for refining tools, eating its meat, or selling it. Lu Yiming had brought the people from the Divine Machine Sect and rushed over upon hearing the sounds of battle. Just in time, he saved Fu Qingye. As soon as he spoke, the people from the four sects began to discuss in low voices. The four members from the Lihen sect also gathered in a circle. Yushi said, "Senior sister, our Lihen sect contributed the most in dealing with this beast. How much do you..." Yushi was absolutely right. At the beginning, it was thanks to Jiang Yunqing's talisman array that trapped the beast, and later Su Hanyue was at the forefront when the beast broke free. Ultimately, it was Ji Changge who killed the beast. Although Fu Qingye also contributed quite a bit, it couldn't compare to the efforts of the people from Lihen sect. Jiang Yunqing pondered for a moment. How about we take 30% of the beast? I think 30% is the limit. Leaving 70% for the other three sects wouldn't be too much. Ji Changge shook his head. Senior sister, I think you can be a bit bolder. Jiang Yunqing shook her head. 30% is already the limit. The other sects are unlikely to agree to more. Ji Changge flashed an innocent smile. This doesn't require their agreement. You just listen to my instructions. I understand human relationships. After that, Ji Changge whispered some instructions to a few senior sisters who looked at him as if they had seen a ghost. After a moment, the sects finished their discussions. Lin Feng from the Dan sect suggested an equal split among the four sects, causing Lu Yiming, who originally wanted to propose that Lihen sect take 30%, to hold his tongue. After all, any extra division would be good. Fu Qingye did not comment. He didn't care about the other sects, but his own Wuming sword sect's share absolutely could not be less. Jiang Yunqing did not expect that the other sects would propose an equal split, especially from the Dan sect, which had contributed the least. Such things have always been that the side that contributes more receives more. Jiang Yunqing sneered. Just a moment ago, she thought the junior brothers' actions were not very good, but now it seemed they were truly excellent. Ji Changge raised 3 fingers towards the disciples of the opposite sects and said, 30%. Fu Qingye pondered slightly. Taking 30% for Lihen sect seemed reasonable. You can have 30% for your Lihen sect. Ji Changge shook his head, revealing an innocent smile. No, I meant 30% for your 3 sects combined. My Lihen sect will take 70%. As soon as he said this, the other 3 sects changed their expressions, and Jiang Shuwan even mocked him. Ji Changge, your delusions should have limits. If you continue to ask for too much, don't blame us for joining forces to deal with you. By then your Lihen sect won't get a single hair. The faces of the other 2 sects were also dark. Ji Changge did not argue with Jiang Shuwan. Then how do you all think the distribution should be? Seeing Ji Changge back down, Lin Feng was even less willing to concede, just as we discussed before, equally among the 4 sects. Ji Changge sighed helplessly. All right, who told us we have fewer people? Then let's distribute it, as you say. The eyes of the people from the other 3 sects lit up, and the Dan sect members felt proud. Even if they contributed the most, what of it? In the end, they still had to compromise. But before Ji Changge's words could finish, an unexpected event occurred, and the corpse of the 6th-tier beast suddenly vanished. The crowd was caught off guard, all stunned. By the time they reacted to what had happened, the members of the Lihen sect were already speeding away on flying swords. The people from the 3 sects were so furious their eyes turned red, drawing their swords to chase, but a talisman array appeared, pinning everyone to the ground, completely unable to fly with their swords. Had it been before, they could have violently broken through, but now they were a group of defeated soldiers, completely helpless. From afar, Ji Changge's infuriating voice could be heard. A bunch of fools giving face, but not wanting it. If you don't follow my distribution, don't blame me for taking everything away. The group was furious, but they were helpless and could only seethe with rage. By the time they broke through this talisman array, the people from the Lihen sect had long since vanished without a trace. Everyone knew that this time they had failed. The disciples from the several sects felt like crying. With so many of them coming to Ziyun Mountain, they ended up with nothing, and each was injured. They lost both the lady and the soldiers, describes their situation perfectly. Ji Changge and the others had already flown far away on their swords, and Yushi looked at Ji Changge on Su Hanyu's sword with disbelief. Junior brother, didn't you just say about human relationships? Ji Changge nodded seriously. Yes, if human relationships harm my interests, I will definitely create an incident. The 3 senior sisters. You understand human relationships. Although the 3 talked, their speed did not slow down as they swiftly flew towards the Lihen sect. The feeling of relief in Jiang Yunqing and the others was indescribable. You wanted to act arrogantly and even plan against us. Well, good, now you've been completely robbed by the junior brother, leaving you with nothing. The members of the Lihen sect were feeling quite pleased while the expressions of the remaining 3 sects were increasingly grim. Fu Qingye gritted his teeth, and without a word led the people of the nameless sword sect away. Lu Yiming finally broke down, unable to maintain his suave persona. He flicked his sleeves, and leaving behind a terse remark of bad luck, departed with the members of the Divine Machine sect. Lu Tingyun lost the will to continue healing, standing up and gazing heavily in the direction of Ji Changge and the others as they departed. Jiang Shuan hurried to Lu Tingyun's side, her face filled with guilt. "Senior brother, are you all right? I didn't heal you earlier for the greater good. I'm sorry, it was all my fault." Jiang Shuan had already noticed the subtle change in her fellow disciples' attitudes towards her. She now needed to earn senior brother's forgiveness. Lin Feng, who was rather simple-minded, had held back for a long time and finally voiced his thoughts at this moment. "Junior sister, even if you wanted to heal Fu Qingye, couldn't you have spared some healing energy for senior brother? There was no need to use it all on Fu Qingye, was there? No matter how powerful Fu Qingye is, senior brother is still our senior." They were not disciples with spiritual roots, so they didn't fully understand the effects of spiritual energy. Jiang Shuan's hands were clenched tightly under her sleeves, trembling slightly. Even though she was extremely reluctant, she knew she had to explain herself at that moment. "Fourth senior brother, I've already explained before. Although I have a top-tier spiritual root, I can only manipulate a single strand of spiritual energy and cannot heal 2 people simultaneously." Ji Change's ability to do so was mostly due to his absorption of the previous wood-type spirit plant. "I still cannot focus on multiple tasks at once." This was tantamount to publicly admitting that she was inferior to that useless Ji Changge, which filled Jiang Shuan with shame. Fourth senior brother usually appeared quite nice to her, but now he jumped out to question her. It seemed his kindness was merely an act after all. "Then you..." Lin Feng was about to say more when he was interrupted by Lu Tingyun. "Fourth junior brother, junior sister did nothing wrong. In that situation, healing Fu Qingye was indeed more advantageous for the battle. If it weren't for junior sister's decisive action, we might not have won so easily." Jiang Shuan sighed in relief. It seemed senior brother would not blame her. Lin Feng was aware of this, but he still felt uncomfortable. He couldn't help but think that if Ji Changge were faced with a choice, he would definitely choose his fellow disciples without. In fact, during that battle, Ji Changge had been focused on his 3 senior sisters. He would only offer a bit of healing energy when others truly could not hold on any longer. It could be said that over 90% of his healing energy was used on his own fellow disciples. How could Ji Changge, who had just joined the Lihen sect for a few days, achieve this, while the always cherished junior sister could not? Lin Feng suddenly shivered, not daring to think further. Why was he comparing Ji Changge with junior sister? He was truly idle. He quickly shook his head, casting those ridiculous thoughts from his mind. How could that petty Ji Changge compare to the principal junior sister? Meanwhile, the members of the Lihen sect were almost at their sect. A few of them could finally breathe a sigh of relief, but once they reached here, even if the other sects caught up, they would not be able to do anything to them. Although they knew the other sects would not catch up, Jiang Yunqing and the others were doing something for the first time and inevitably felt a bit timid. It was only at this moment that Jiang Yunqing voiced his doubts. "Junior brother, didn't you use the true martial talisman? Why aren't you showing any signs of weakness?" At first, Jiang Yunqing thought it was because the true martial talisman's effect had not worn off, but now that so much time had passed, the effects of the true martial talisman could not still be active, yet junior brother showed no signs of fatigue. Su Hanyue and Yushi had forgotten about this as well, and upon hearing this, they immediately turned to look at Ji Changge. With this reminder, Ji Changge was also somewhat astonished. The effect of the true martial talisman wore off a long time ago. "I only feel that my spiritual power has been somewhat drained, but there's no sign of the spiritual power being completely depleted, as mentioned before." Just as the group was filled with uncertainty, the flying sword had already arrived at the sect. Upon reaching the sect's entrance, they saw the previously elegant Sect Master Yun, who was now in front of outsiders, desperately shouting at Elder Qin, who managed the resources. "Elder Qin, don't smash our Lihen sect's door. I'll find a way for the cultivation resources, please don't. If you want to smash the door, you'll have to smash me first." Yun Zue Mo truly had no other options and could only throw a tantrum at Elder Qin. Elder Qin, being of considerable age, had her face and hair marked by the years. Yun Zue Mo found it difficult to press her using her title as Sect Master, so she had no choice but to act out. Elder Qin helplessly replied, "Sect Master, the sect is nearly at its end, and some outer disciples are leaving because we cannot provide cultivation resources. I don't want to either, but right now the only way to resolve our immediate crisis is to exchange this door for spirit stones." Even with Elder Qin's reasoning, Yun Zue Mo firmly refused. Elder Qin, who managed only the resources naturally, did not consider things as thoroughly as the Sect Master. Yun Zue Mo's insistence was not just for her own face, as she understood that this door represented the last line of defense in the hearts of the Lihen sect disciples. If they lost even this face, the morale would surely crumble. Though Elder Qin's approach could solve the immediate crisis, it was akin to drinking poison to quench thirst. Just as the two were at an impasse, Ji Changge and the others returned. From the loud shouts of their master, they understood what was happening. They felt a pang in their hearts. After so many years in the Lihen sect, it had long felt like home. Jiang Yinqing stepped forward. Elder Qin, please don't smash our door. I can draw true martial talismans now. I'll draw more and take them down the mountain to sell. I think that can keep us going for a while. Yes, Elder Qin, I'll go into seclusion to refine weapons and take them down the mountain to sell along with seniors. Su Hanyue, being a sword cultivator, had no means of earning spirit stones and remained silent, contemplating hunting some magical beasts to sell. Although she wouldn't earn as much as senior sister and fifth junior sister, it was still better than nothing. Elder Qin sighed. I know you are all good kids thinking only of the sect, but what you propose is merely a drop in the bucket for the entire sect. Ji Changge immediately stepped forward, grabbing Elder Qin's sleeve and shaking it. Though he was a boy, he was still young and had a hint of childishness on his face. His affectionate gesture did not seem out of place. Elder Qin, please give us a bit more time. We will definitely find a way to earn spirit stones. I'll go back and learn talisman drawing from senior sister, and I want to contribute to the sect. By the way, we also hunted a 6th-tier magical beast this time. You can sell it first. With that, Ji Changge waved his hand, and the corpse of the silver moon sky wolf appeared before Elder Qin. For a moment, both Elder Qin and Yun Ziyun stared wide-eyed, and Yun Ziyun even forgot her tantrum. This? Did you all kill this? A 6th-tier magical beast. Seeing the disbelief on Master and Elder Qin's faces, Ji Changge explained, of course not. How could we have slain a 6th-tier beast? It was the chief disciples of the Wooming Sword Sect, Dan Sect, and the Divine Mechanism Sect who teamed up with us to slay it. Yun Ziyun nodded, secretly finding this reasonable. Suddenly she was taken aback again. No, this was even less reasonable. Would those sects really give them the corpse of the beast they had slain together? Thinking this, Yun Ziyun asked, and Ji Changge nodded obediently. Well, the brothers from those sects are quite nice. Everyone. The senior sisters, if the people from those sects heard you say this, they would probably chase you around the Lihen sect for dozens of laps. Yun Sect Master and Elder Qin, I believe you not. However, now that we have the corpse of the 6th-tier beast, it's a good thing. Elder Qin didn't want to ruin the sect's reputation and took the corpse of the silver moon sky wolf away. Back at the sect, Jiang Yinqing told Master about the little junior brother using the true martial talisman without feeling weak. After a careful investigation, Yun Ziyun reached a conclusion. It should be that Changge's 5 spiritual roots are extraordinary, and his spiritual power is far superior to that of single or double spiritual root cultivators. A single true martial talisman didn't fully deplete his spiritual power, so he naturally wouldn't feel weak. With this answer, everyone felt relieved. As soon as Yushi returned, she dove into her courtyard to refine tools. Su Hanyue also returned to her residence, while Ji Changge followed the senior sister to learn talisman drawing. What he previously said about learning talisman drawing from the senior sister was not just talk. After all, talismans can sell for quite a few spirit stones. Jiang Yinqing taught him the most commonly used introductory talisman, the Gathering Spirit Talisman. The Gathering Spirit Talisman is relatively simple to make, inexpensive, can be used in stacks, and has a huge demand, making it the best-selling talisman. Jiang Yinqing slowed down as he drew the talisman while explaining to Ji Changge. The key to drawing talismans is absolute familiarity with the runes. You must draw it in one go. If you pause, the talisman is wasted. Also, when infusing spiritual power, it must be even. Uneven output will also lead to failure in drawing the talisman. As Jiang Yinqing finished speaking and put down his brush, the talisman on the table gleamed and was completed. Ji Changge looked at the talisman, memorized the runes, picked up the talisman brush, and began to draw. Halfway through he paused, and the talisman was ruined. The runes were a bit too complex for him. He couldn't remember them perfectly. Ji Changge shook his head and tossed aside the ruined talisman paper, looking at the runes again before picking up the brush once more. This time he drew most of the way through until nearly finished, but the brush's movement paused again, leading to another failure. The runes became increasingly complex as he neared completion. Although Ji Changge had failed twice, Jiang Yinqing observed with brightened eyes. She could see clearly that the little junior brother's failures in drawing were due to his unfamiliarity with the runes, while his spiritual power output had remained even and stable. That was the most precious aspect. Compared to the stable output of spiritual power, memorizing the runes was. Drawing talismans also requires talent, as one must control their spiritual power with utmost precision. Many cultivators, even after practicing a lifetime, can't achieve such precise control and integrate it into the runes. The control of spiritual power required for drawing talismans is entirely different from that needed when fighting. The little junior brother could perfectly control his spiritual power right from the start. This is truly a remarkable talent. It's okay, little junior brother. Being able to control spiritual power precisely from the start is already a remarkable talent. Ji Changge took her sister's encouragement as a boost, adjusted her state, and continued to draw the next talisman. This time, without any mishaps, she drew in one go, put down the brush, and completed the talisman. At the moment the talisman shown, Jiang Yunqing was even more excited than Ji Changge. Little junior brother, you did it. You completed your first talisman on your third attempt. You truly are a genius. Ji Changge, why does it sound like you are not praising me? Sister, is this really impressive? Ji Changge had never engaged in talisman drawing before, so he was unclear about his level. Let me put it this way, little junior brother, when I first learned to draw talismans, I also started with the Gathering Spirit talisman. I first memorized the runes, then practiced for 3 days before I could draw my first talisman. Ziyun Mountain of the Lihen sect was about the same. Thus we were both dubbed the first geniuses of the talisman path. Ji Changge was somewhat surprised. He felt it wasn't that difficult. So Ji Changge took a lot of talisman paper and ink from his senior sister and returned to his courtyard to draw talismans. The senior sister also gave him some other talismans for him to study on his own. Ji Changge even asked his senior sister how much a Gathering Spirit talisman could sell for. Jiang Yunqing replied that he had just started learning and was drawing low-grade Gathering Spirit talismans, which could sell for 5 low-grade spirit stones each. Since the Gathering Spirit talisman is essential for everyone, nearly all cultivators have a demand for it. As a basic talisman, the price is naturally quite affordable. Ji Changge happily returned to his courtyard with all these items to draw talismans. When he returned, it was already night. He immediately began to draw, tirelessly progressing from 1 talisman every 15 minutes to 2 and finally 3 in the last quarter hour. Until Ji Changge felt his spiritual power waning, dizziness clouded his vision, and his wrist ached so much he could barely lift it. He finally tossed aside the talisman brush and flopped down into the chair. By this time the sky outside was already bright. Unbeknownst to him, he had drawn all night long. Looking at a pile of Gathering Spirit talismans in front of him, Ji Changge wailed inwardly. Damn it, who said time is money? Clearly a few hundred spirit stones could buy him a night's worth of labor. After resting for a while, he noticed it was just in time for breakfast, so he headed to the dining hall. In the cultivation world, there are indeed fasting pills that can keep one from feeling hunger for 3 days. Although he received a few from his master when he first entered, knowing the situation of the sect, he was reluctant to eat them. Fortunately, the sect still had plenty of mundane meals. In the dining hall, the 3 senior sisters looked at the heavy dark circles under Ji Changge's eyes, puzzled. What did the little junior brother do last night? Only Jiang Yunqing seemed to understand and tentatively asked Ji Changge, little junior brother, did you draw talismans late into the night? Jiang Yunqing had already told the other 2 junior sisters about the little junior brother being a talisman genius, and they thought he must have stayed up all night drawing talismans. Ji Changge said nothing, simply listlessly raised a finger. Did you draw for another hour when you got back? Jiang Yunqing thought to herself, the little junior brother is indeed very hardworking. At his chi refining stage, drawing for an hour straight would be challenging for him, but she wondered how his success rate was. Just as she asked, Ji Changge shook his head. No, I drew all night. After Ji Changge finished speaking, the jaws of the 3 senior sisters nearly hit the ground. Seeing Ji Changge's weak appearance, the 5th senior sister, Yushi, hurriedly prepared some of his favorite dishes and placed them in front of him. Ji Changge slapped a stack of talismans he had drawn the night before onto the table and began to devour his meal voraciously. At the same time, he pondered that this situation was not a solution. Even if he and the senior sister painted talismans day and night, it would be impossible to earn enough spirit stones to supply the entire sect, so he had to think of other ways. While Ji Changge was contemplating his own matters, Jiang Yunqing and the others were stunned by the stack of talismans before them. Did the junior brother draw so many in just one night? The senior sister Jiang Yunqing, who was at the nascent soul stage, could only manage to draw this many in one night, but she was a nascent soul. What level was the junior brother at? All of them felt as if their worldview had been greatly shaken. They opened their mouths several times, but couldn't utter a single word. Watching Ji Changge devour his food, they looked at him as if he were a monster. Ji Changge thought for a long time without any clue. What a pity. If only there were a printer at this moment. Suddenly, Ji Changge's eyes brightened. Hey, a printer. It's not impossible. However, it would need some modifications to allow spiritual energy to be infused, as the most important thing in drawing talismans is the spiritual energy. Ji Changge carefully considered the feasibility of this idea. You know, it actually seems quite doable. The principle of a printer is relatively complex and cannot infuse spiritual energy, but this shouldn't be too difficult for a refiner. If technology isn't enough, then we can make up for it with spiritual energy. With this in mind, Ji Changge asked Yushi in front of him. 5th senior sister, I want to create a spiritual tool, but it's not an attacking type. If I can draw the blueprint and outline the principles, can you make it? When it comes to refining, Yushi is quite meticulous. After thinking for a moment, she replied. If there are no requirements for the rank, it should be possible, but I need to see it to confirm. After all, refining attacking spiritual tools is the simplest. Other functional spiritual tools have significantly greater difficulty. Junior brother, what kind of spiritual tool do you want to refine? No matter what you need, it'll cover everything. Just consider it a welcome gift from your senior sister. Ji Changge quickly finished his meal and immediately pulled the fifth senior sister back to his courtyard. He didn't tell the senior sisters, fearing they would be disappointed if it ultimately couldn't be made. In Ji Changge's courtyard, she held the blueprint drawn by Ji Changge and stared wide-eyed in shock. Junior brother, can this really work? I'm not too sure, but we have to give it a try. I only have a rough idea of how the printer works. We'll need to rely on you, fifth senior sister, to figure out the specifics together. Yushi looked at the blueprint before her, her eyes filled with excitement. If they could indeed create this printer, it would undoubtedly improve the current situation of the Lihen sect. A determined look appeared in her eyes as she said, "Let's do it." The principles of making this printer were somewhat complex, especially for someone like Yushi who had never seen such a device. Making it didn't require any rare materials, and there would be countless opportunities for trial and error. If one attempt failed, they could try 10 times. She was determined to make it work. Thus, Yushi meticulously studied the blueprint, asking Ji Changge about any unclear parts. After researching sufficiently, she finally began to work on the components. Since the components needed to carry spiritual energy, all parts had to be refined in a way that could be used afterward. This was a big project, and Ji Changge couldn't be of much help. The process of production was certainly not smooth sailing. They encountered many troubles. After all, Ji Changge was only a novice, and he couldn't clearly explain many driving principles, so Yushi had to rely on her own research. Fortunately, she was a tool refiner and had a natural sensitivity in this area. When she encountered problems she couldn't solve, she would consult the elders in the sect who specialized in refining. The disciples of the Lihen sect also had classes to attend. During the day, Yushi and Ji Changge attended classes, and after class they rushed back to study the printer. Even Su Hanyue couldn't help but asked Jiang Yunxing, "Senior sister, what are junior brother and fifth junior sister up to? They seem mysteriously absent every day." Jiang Yunxing shook her head, indicating that she didn't know. Finally, a month later, the two senior sisters could no longer resist and went to Yu Zai's courtyard to see what the two were up to. As soon as they reached the door, they heard Yu Zai's exclamations. It worked. Junior brother, I have a feeling this time will definitely succeed." "What worked?" Jiang Yunxing asked as she walked in. "Senior sister, second senior sister, you came at just the right time. Come and see the spiritual tool that fifth senior sister and I have newly developed." Ji Changge's face was full of excitement. Jiang Yunxing and Su Hanyue's gazes simultaneously fell on a square object on the table that resembled a box. They didn't understand what this object was that could make the two so excited. Without saying much, she poured talisman ink into the ink box, placed a stack of talisman paper in the reserve position, and then took out 3 spirit stones, placing them next to the printer in their designated spot. Then a flash of light appeared, and a square light screen appeared above the printer. Ji Changge took out the talisman brush and drew a gathering spirit talisman on the light screen. Then the printer began to operate, and talismans of gathering spirit were printed out like a stream from the printer. At that moment, Jiang Yunxing and Su Hanyue were left dumbfounded. What did they just see? After about a quarter of an hour, the spiritual energy from the 3 spirit stones was exhausted, and the printer stopped working. The printer they had created was a super simplified version of a cultivation printer, not as advanced as modern devices, lacking a power switch, and could only stop automatically when the energy from the spirit stones was depleted. It had no other functions that could only replicate the runes drawn on the light screen. However, even with these functions, it was already astonishing. Yushi eagerly picked up one of the talismans and activated it, causing waves of surging spiritual energy to rush in from all directions. "It worked, junior brother, we really succeeded." Yushi was so excited she jumped high, and Ji Changge was equally thrilled because this meant that he and the senior sister would no longer have to live the exhausting life of drawing talismans day and night. At this moment, Jiang Yunxing and Su Hanyue had their expressions frozen in astonishment. What did they just witness? In less than a quarter of an hour, without anyone drawing the talismans, they had produced about 30 talismans using only 3 spirit stones. Has this world finally turned into something unrecognizable? Seeing the dazed expressions of the senior sister and second senior sister, Ji Changge hurriedly pulled the two to look closer. "Senior sister, with this printer we won't have to toil away drawing talismans anymore. Second senior sister, this printer has solved the sect's urgent problem, so you won't need to frequently venture out to hunt magical beasts." Jiang Yunxing took the talismans and examined each one. They were indeed successful talismans, and their quality was all medium grade. Moreover, the talismans produced by this printer had a 100% success rate. It was truly incredible. Jiang Yunxing's hands trembled with excitement, and even Su Hanyue beside her couldn't contain her emotions. They both understood what this meant. After a moment, Jiang Yunxing finally calmed her emotions and asked hesitantly, "What kind of magical device is this printer? How can it produce 30 gathering spirit talismans with just 3 spirit stones?" She found it hard to believe. Normally, drawing 30 gathering spirit talismans would exhaust all the spiritual energy of a golden core cultivator. How much energy could these 3 spirit stones possibly hold? Not only does it need to draw the talismans, but it must also maintain the operation of this spiritual device, and it can produce over 30 talismans. This is truly a divine artifact. While they were unaware of it, Ji Changge certainly understood this, and no matter how skilled a person might be, they could not match a machine's precision in controlling values, not even a cultivator. During the talisman drawing process, cultivators waste 80 to 90% of their spiritual energy just to maintain a stable output to the runes, whereas a machine does not face this issue. As long as there is a numerical value, it can keep a stable output indefinitely. This is a device I created together with Senior Sister 5, and it will be contributed to the sect for use in the future. However, this printer can only print some lower-grade talismans. High-level talismans, or those of superior or even supreme quality, are mostly impossible to produce. Some talismans require not only spiritual energy, but also soul energy during their creation, which this printer cannot achieve. Moreover, some supreme talismans require recognition from heaven and earth, which the printer cannot replicate. It's like products made on a modern assembly line, which still differ from those crafted by hand with meticulous attention. Jiang Yunqing nodded repeatedly, and the group went to Yun Zumo, presenting the printer as a treasure. This time Jiang Yunqing and Su Hanyue operated it, eager to indulge in it. Yun Zumo was so astonished that he couldn't close his mouth, then laughed heartily, without caring for his image. Great. Heaven has not forsaken my Lihen sect. With this printer we can finally alleviate the urgent situation of the Lihen sect. Old 6, you are truly a good disciple for your master, a rare talent, the blessing of our Lihen sect. Master, I merely proposed an idea. This printer was primarily refined by Senior Sister 5. Ji Changge felt a bit embarrassed about being called Old 6. Yun Zumo replied, well, Old 5 is also good, but Old 6's idea is the best. Well, then it's still Old 6. The others remained silent, praising the junior disciple as a good student and a rare talent, while she merely settled for being not bad. However, she did not mind. Seeing the junior disciple praised made her happier than receiving praise herself. The sect leader immediately handed the printer to Elder Su of the Talisman Peak, as he was the most knowledgeable about talismans. Upon receiving the printer, Elder Su was almost overwhelmed with excitement, rushing back to Talisman Peak with it in his arms. In the following days, Talisman Peak produced countless talismans for sale, with spirit stones flowing in like water. Ji Changge inquired roughly and deduced from the influx of spirit stones that the printer had to run day and night at Talisman Peak to produce these talismans. Goodness, even the donkeys in a production team aren't worked this hard. Ji Changge wondered if he should discuss with Senior Sister 5 about creating another printer, otherwise at this rate the printer would be overworked. The previous one was merely a prototype, and after the competition, they could make more if time allowed. Thinking this way, Ji Changge and Senior Sister 5 spent several more days and produced another printer. This time the two worked smoothly, saving much time on trial and error, and naturally the speed increased significantly. After completing this, Ji Changge became busier than a spinning top. Outside of class, he spent most of his time in the library. Since drawing talismans all night last time, he discovered that after fully exhausting his spiritual energy, the energy in his dantian had noticeably increased upon recovery. With this discovery, Ji Changge began to search for rune-related books in the library, studying them at night, until his spiritual energy was completely expended. He knew that the resources needed to elevate his 5 spiritual roots were at least 5 times that of a single spiritual root. Currently, his low cultivation was manageable, but once his level increased, each advancement would require a vast amount of resources. The Lihen sect clearly lacked the capability to provide that, leaving him no choice but to rely on his own effort. Occasionally, he would go to the top floor of the library, a privilege granted specifically by his master. The top floor was filled with celestial-grade secret arts, and even direct disciples were not allowed entry without permission. Since Yun Zumo learned that Ji Changge could cultivate and master celestial-grade secret arts, he permitted him to enter the top floor of the library at any time for study. Ji Changge found that he could learn celestial-grade secret arts at a glance without any obstacles. However, he was well aware of the principle that one should not be greedy, so he did not dare to learn too much at once. Thus 2 months passed, and Ji Changge's cultivation rose from the 5th level of Qi refinement to the 6th level. Since he was still in the Qi refinement stage, increasing his cultivation was relatively easy. After his cultivation improved, Ji Changge took his 3 senior sisters out, claiming it was for training. In reality, he knew that his 3rd and 4th senior sisters were about to encounter trouble at this juncture. In the original plot, the 2 senior sisters faced a crisis during their training outside, encountering disciples from a major sect who were besieging a demon. Naturally, the 2 senior sisters rushed to help, but due to an accident, the demon managed to escape. 4th senior sister Gu Mei was infected by demonic energy, which later became a contributing factor to her fall into the demonic path. After being infected by the demonic energy, there was no way to cleanse it, only suppression. Eventually, under various stimuli and 4th senior sister's intentional provocation, she fell completely into the demonic path. However, the details of what the accident was were not recorded in the original work, only briefly mentioned in Gumai's memories. Yet Jiang Shuan was present at that time, and based on Ji Changge's understanding of Jiang Shuan, this accident was likely related to her. What Ji Changge needed to do was to prevent all of this. He did not know the exact timing of the occurrence, but it was around 2 or 3 months before the Six Sects competition, so he deliberately arrived early at the location where the incident would occur. The incident took place at a place known as the Soul Break Ridge, a desolate area where no grass grew and all vegetation withered, hence the name. Ordinary cultivators would avoid it, making it reasonable for demons to hide there. This time someone sensed unusual activity there, prompting several sects' direct disciples to rush there. Ji Changge's reasoning was quite valid. Since the other sects were attending to the Soul Break Ridge incident, the Lihen sect couldn't afford to sit idly by. Direct disciples from other sects had already rushed to the Soul Break Ridge, and naturally the Lihen sect received. The Lihen sect was comprised entirely of female cultivators, and other sects generally disliked including them. So, as the Lihen sect's influence waned, the exclusion became even more apparent. It's not that disciples from other sects disliked female cultivators. Rather, in the eyes of most disciples, female cultivators in the cultivation world were divided into Jiang Shuan and the rest. Moreover, Ji Changge knew that after this Six Sects competition, the major sects would directly expel the Lihen sect from the top 6 based on their overall strength. The top 6 sects would be reduced to 5. Among the 6, the other sects each had their unique expertise, making them indispensable, while the Lihen sect seemed to dabble in everything but could not replace the other sects. It appeared to be somewhat dispensable, always coming in last in every competition, and with the Lihen sect's declining power, they were thus squeezed out of the top 6. However, this last place did not mean that the Lihen sect was truly the weakest, as there were still Su Hanyue and Jiang Yunqing, so they were certainly not the very last. They were always second to last. Although the two were strong, the Lihen sect had far fewer direct disciples than the others. Including the newly accepted Ji Changge, there were only 6, among which one was an alchemist, and another a tool refiner. During competitions, they relied entirely on their peers, making it naturally difficult to compete against sects where everyone could fight. The last place was naturally the Alchemy Sect. However, the Alchemy Sect was not a fighting sect. Their participation in competitions was merely to join in the fun, and no one would genuinely compete with them for rankings. In a sense, the Alchemy Sect was the most indispensable among the 6 sects. After all, everyone needed medicinal pills. In this situation, the second to last Lihen sect was indeed at the bottom. Duanhuan Ridge is located some distance from the Lihen sect, and Ji Changge specifically requested his 3 senior sisters to take a small flying boat there together. After all, they would still have to fight later, and it wouldn't be wise to waste spiritual energy flying on swords. Since acquiring 2 printers, the situation at Lihen sect has improved significantly over the past 2 months, no longer as strained as before. Since it was requested by the junior brother, they agreed. As the scene shifts, the 4 of them arrive at Duanhuan Ridge. Just as they reach the outskirts before they can land, they see a figure wrapped in black energy, frantically fleeing. It seems he has suffered serious injuries. It's a demon tribe. Yushi exclaimed in surprise. Seeing this injured demon, Ji Changge's heart tightened. Have they arrived too late? At the same time as she screamed, Jiang Yunqing and Su Hanyue had already moved into action, launching talismans and sword chi towards the demon. This demon's cultivation evidently reached the illusory phase, but now severely injured, he had only a fraction of his strength left and dared not engage them, waving his hand to unleash 2 streams of demonic energy to block their attacks. In the next moment, Yuzai's flame arrows soared through the air, but the demon merely waved his hand, causing the arrows to veer off course and strike a withered tree behind him. At the same time, the demon quickly turned to flee. As he changed direction, he seemed to sense something. Abruptly looking, a young boy leaped down from the flying boat, his descent augmented by gravity and his own strength, crashing down violently while thrusting his sword straight at the demon. The force and speed of the descent left the demon dumbfounded. At that moment, he truly wanted to shout, "Don't come closer, junior brother." The 3 senior sisters on the flying boat were startled and immediately took control of their flying swords to pursue Ji Changge. However, their speed could not match Ji Changge's free fall with added force. The demon had no time to dodge as Ji Changge crashed into him with a loud thud. His sword pierced through the demon's body. Logically, with Ji Changge's cultivation, he shouldn't have been able to pierce the demon's flesh, but the added force from his fall made his sword strike like a hammer, driving it deep into the demon's body. The demon had been accumulating demonic energy, intending to strike down this reckless youth with a single blow, but unexpectedly the boy crashed into him, dispersing the gathered energy. The demon spat out a mouthful of blood. Though he wasn't killed by the boy's sword, he was nearly crushed to death instead. Friend from the demon tribe, since you've come to the cultivation realm, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Isn't the cultivation realm fun? Damn it, do you not realize how fun it is? If I stay any longer, it'll be... Had he not been seriously injured, he wouldn't have been so humiliated, nearly crushed to death by a mere chi refinement cultivator. He wouldn't even dare to return to the demon tribe. In a fit of rage and embarrassment, the demon kicked Ji Changge away with both him and his sword. The senior sisters, flying on their swords, quickly caught Ji Changge without caring about anything else and immediately checked his injuries. That was an illusory phase demon. Even heavily injured, could easily squash a chi refinement cultivator with a single slap, right? While they were examining Ji Changge's injuries, the demon had long since disappeared. Seeing the pale faces of his senior sisters, Ji Changge grinned slyly. Sisters, don't worry. Before I jump down, I affixed 3 defensive talismans on myself. That kick just now only shattered those 3 talismans. Su Hanyue slapped Ji Changge on the back of his head. Only shattered 3 talismans, and you say only. If even one less talisman had been there, your life would have been forfeit. The expressions of the senior sisters were filled with anger as they looked at Ji Changge. He knew they were truly angry, so he hurriedly admitted his mistake. I'm sorry, senior sisters. Please forgive me this once. I just wanted to help you. After all, my cultivation is so low that this is the only way I could assist you. On the surface, Ji Changge looked pitiful, but in his heart he thought I was wrong, but he'll dare to do it again next. Seeing Ji Changge's pitiful expression, the 3 senior sisters couldn't bear to say anything more. The eldest sister handed him a stack of defensive talismans for protection, while the second sister tossed him a jade talisman containing Su Hanyue's 3 full-powered strikes. The 5th sister secretly pondered how reckless the junior brother was, and that she should refine more defensive artifacts for him when they return. Ji Changge did not forget the main purpose of coming here. His eyes turned. Sisters, since that demon was heavily injured and obviously fleeing, let's follow the direction he came from and see how the cultivators who fought him are doing. Upon Ji Changge's reminder, the others immediately recalled. Yes, it had been a while since anyone had pursued them. Could the cultivators surrounding that demon have all been wiped out? The group quickly stowed away the flying boat and hurried towards the direction the demon had fled. Just moments ago, 2 young girls were running for their lives. These 2 were the 3rd and 4th senior sisters Ji Changge was looking for. At this moment, Fong Bangxia was supporting Gu Mei, who stumbled forward while taking out healing pills for Gu Mei to consume. Gu Mei was surrounded by black, demonic energy, her entire being filled with a violent emotional turmoil that she was desperately trying to suppress. Fong Bangxia's voice was somewhat helpless. 4th junior sister, hold on a bit longer. I will definitely take you back to the sect to have the master help you suppress the demonic energy. Fong Bangxia draped one of Gu Mei's arms over her shoulder, half dragging, half carrying Gu Mei forward. Behind them, several cultivators from other sects were pursuing them, and she dared not stop. They had both come here after seeing the news on the cultivation forum, and upon arrival encountered the other 5 sects besieging the demon, not hesitating to join the battle. Gu Mei was a sword cultivator and possessed a golden spirit root, making her a strong offensive cultivator. She quickly became one of the main forces against the demon, apart from the few main disciples. Just as they were about to take down the demon cultivator, Jiang Shuwen, the junior sister from the Dan sect standing next to Gu Mei, suddenly found herself depleted of spiritual energy and could no longer activate the golden phoenix feather. The phoenix true fire has a restraining effect on demon tribes, and with its sudden loss their position became... The demon immediately broke through from this side, with Jiang Shuwan at the forefront, but her second senior brother timely pulled her away, avoiding the demon's attack. However, Gu Mei was in dire straits. The situation changed too quickly, and she directly faced the full force attack of the illusory phase demon. Gu Mei was in the middle of a strike and had no time to dodge. This sudden change caught everyone off guard. Had she not managed to evade in time, Gu Mei would have undoubtedly died. Fortunately, Fong Bangxia had been attentive to the situation of her 4th junior sister. Just as Jiang Shuwan was pulled away, Fong Bangxia used her soft whip to wrap around Gu Mei's waist, pulling her to her side. Though she was just half a step slower than Jiang Shuwen, Gu Mei was still grazed by the opponent's attack, resulting in injuries, not to mention demonic energy entering her body. 4th junior sister, are you unharmed? Fong Bangxia asked urgently. A surge of qi churned within Gu Mei's body, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. At that very moment, Jiang Shuwen's voice rang out, senior sister from the Lihen sect. How could you let that demon lord escape? Once freed, that demon lord will unleash endless calamity. Had you merely delayed him for a moment, reinforcements from the senior brothers of all sects would have arrived instantly, and his demise would have been certain. Upon hearing Jiang Shuwen's words, a portion of the disciples present turned their gazes toward Gu Mei, brows faintly furrowed, clearly endorsing her accusation. Yet others stood in quiet contemplation. Among them were Fu Qingyue and Lu Yiming. Fong Bangxia, however, erupted, instantly stepping protectively before Gu Mei and glaring fiercely at Jiang Shuwan. What nonsense are you spouting? If not for your sudden depletion of spiritual energy, just now, how could that demon clan have seized its opportunity? Would my 4th junior sister have nearly lost her life? I haven't even held you to account yet, and you dare reproach us? Song Juanza Jiang Shuan's second senior brother scowled coldly. Fong Bangxia, watch your tongue. My junior sister cultivates only at the Foundation establishment realm. Of course her spiritual energy would falter against such a demon lord. She has already rendered invaluable aid. Before Fong Bangxia could retort, Jiang Shuan spoke again. Senior sister Fong, it is understandable that senior sister Gu fears confronting the demon clan. But if war with them erupts tomorrow, must every cultivator shrink back thus? Were I endowed with senior sister Gu's cultivation level, I would sacrifice my very life, without hesitation, to halt that demon clan. Of course, everyone follows their own path. I do not mean to accuse senior sister Gu of anything. Jiang Shuan appeared both timid before the two women and defiantly upright. A delicate balance of fear and resolve. No sooner had her words fallen than Fong Bangxia lashed out with a whip aimed straight at her face. Yet the whip never reached its target. The moment it sliced through the air, Song Juanza seized it firmly in his bare hand. Jiang Shuan, cease your veiled barbs. If you wish to sacrifice yourself, do so on your own terms. Fong Bangxia roared in fury. She recognized Jiang Shuan for what she was, a master of feigned innocence. And though the Lihen sect boasted an entire lineage of female cultivators, none had ever wielded such artifice. Fong Bangxia had no precedent, no experience, no defense. Just then Lu Tingyun, the chief disciple of the Dan sect, strode forward swiftly. Fong Bangxia, do not overstep your bounds. Do you truly believe the Dan sect stands empty-handed? As her senior sister engaged in rhetorical combat, Gu Mei, though unwell, forced herself forward. Who precisely is overstepping? Anyone with eyes can see this entire debacle stems from your cherished junior sister's spiritual exhaustion. Yet now you twist the truth and cast blame elsewhere. Where then lies the Dan sect's dignity? Lu Tingyun's face flushed pallid, then livid, his composure utterly shattered. In truth, he knew the root cause lay in his junior sister's depleted spiritual energy. Though he acknowledged her low cultivation level made her endurance thus far remarkable, he could not in good conscience deny her involvement in the present crisis. Gu Mei turned directly to Jiang Shuan. You claim you would never retreat. So why did you flee just now? Will you say your senior brother restrained you? Then truly your senior brother is contemptible, derailing your grand mission to serve the cultivation world. Had you detonated your core on the spot, perhaps you might even have impeded his escape. Or will you again blame your senior brother for holding you back? Once more, I say he is contemptible, having robbed you of your chance to become a martyr. Thus all this rests upon your senior brother. Had he not dragged you away, my senior sister would not have dragged me away. And by now the demon lord's grave may well be overgrown with 3 feet of grass. Though weakened, Gu Mei's tongue remained razor-sharp, unyielding, unblinking. Having delivered her blistering retort, she signaled to her third senior sister to depart. The pinnacle of verbal combat lies not in winning the argument, but in denying your opponent any opening to reply, leaving her to fester in silent self-consuming anguish. Indeed, her intuition proved accurate. Watching their retreating figures, Jiang Shuan seethed inwardly, yet dared not betray her fury, lest she shatter the flawless persona she so meticulously maintained. Fu Qingye had no patience for such spectacle. With the demon clan escaped, he intended to investigate what else lingered here. After the Wuming Sword sect departed, Lu Yiming offered a curt farewell and led the Xinji sect away as well. He saw clearly the Dan sect's junior sister was cunning beyond measure, not a flicker of simplicity in her gaze. The Xinji sect had no desire to entangle itself with her machinations. With matters settled, disciples from other sects gradually dispersed. Jiang Shuan suppressed her wrath with effort, and suddenly a scheme crystallized in her mind. Alas, senior brothers, senior sister Gu of the Lihen sect has been tainted by demonic qi. Should she succumb to madness and harm others upon departure? Worse still, if she falls fully to demonic corruption. Her words sent a collective chill through the assembly. In their preoccupation with the Dan and Lihen sect's confrontation, they had utterly forgotten this peril. Qi Zheng, chief disciple of the Qingwan sect, guileless and unguarded, slammed his thigh. Indeed, junior sister Jiang speaks wisely. What then shall we do? With eager affirmation, Jiang Shuan smiled inwardly and began to speak with studied deliberation. Only the Dan sect possesses the expertise to suppress the demonic qi within senior sister Gu's body. Past grievances must be set aside. The urgent priority is escorting her back to our sect immediately so we may refine the elixir needed to contain her corruption. Qi Zheng nodded vigorously. Junior sister Jiang's compassion knows no bounds. Even after their harsh words, she places their welfare above her own. Jiang Shuan feigned magnanimity. It is nothing. Misunderstandings may be clarified, but I fear senior sisters Gu and Fong harbor deep misgivings about our sect and may refuse to accompany us willingly. Qi Zheng waved his hand decisively. The Qingwan sect stands with junior sister Jiang. Should senior sister Gu fall to demonic corruption, her consent becomes irrelevant. Should she resist, I shall bind her myself and carry her to the Dan sect. Lu Tingyun too conceded the logic in his junior sister's words. Demonic qi infiltration was no trivial matter. It demanded immediate intervention by their sect master. Thus the two sects aligned without hesitation and pursued the direction in which Gu Mei and Fong Bangxia had fled. Sensing pursuit, the pair quickened their pace. Traveling outside their sect, they carried no flying vessel, making immediate return impossible. Logically, accompanying the Dan sect would have been the wisest course. Yet both sensed something unmistakable in Jiang Shuan's gaze, seething resentment and lethal intent. Though the cause remained unknown, the malice directed at them was chillingly real. Fong Bangxia feared nothing, but Gu Mei's condition admitted no margin for error. Returning to their own sect, however arduous, outweighed the peril of surrendering to the Dan sect. Though they could alert their sect master en route should Dan sect disciples attempt treachery mid-journey, all protest would come too late. She had already dispatched an urgent summons to her sect for rescue. Yet dread manifested itself. Their pursuers had caught up, clearly resolved to seize them by force and deliver them to the Dan sect. Just as she transmitted her message and prepared to flee with her fourth junior sister, a flying vessel materialized overhead, hovering serenely in the sky. It bore the insignia of the Lihen sect. Both women broke into radiant smiles. The two hurried towards the direction of the flying boat while sending messages to their sect. However, Gu Mei was currently restricted in movement, and the target of her sword was too obvious, making it easy for her to be shot down. Naturally, their speed could not match that of the pursuers behind them. Not long after they set off, a cry echoed from above, and the next moment a golden-winged rock flew over their heads, blocking their way. This golden-winged rock was said to be able to sense movements from 1,000 miles away and was extremely fast. It was the spirit beast of Qi Zhang, the chief disciple of the Qingyuan sect. No wonder they were able to catch up so quickly. It turned out they had the assistance of the Qingyuan sect. The golden-winged rock possessed strength comparable to that of a nascent soul cultivator, and the two did not dare to confront it head-on, thus stopping in their tracks. In that brief moment, the people from the Dan sect and Qingyuan sect had already caught up, surrounding the two of them. Lu Tingyun spoke, "First, Gu Mei, with the demonic energy now in your body, it's very dangerous for you to continue like this. Come back with us to the Dan sect, and my master will suppress the demonic energy for you." Fong Bangxia held her long whip, standing in front of Gu Mei. "The demonic energy in my junior sister's body will be suppressed by our master, so there's no need for the Dan sect and Qingyuan sect to worry." "What do you all mean by this?" Jiang Shuan gently spoke. "Sisters, please do not be willful. Given the current situation, you have no flying boat and cannot return to the sect at the fastest speed. If any accidents occur on the way and the demonic energy goes out of control, causing a massacre, how can those low-level cultivators and ordinary mortals resist? The best choice now is to return with us to the Dan sect. This matter not only concerns yourselves, but also countless low-level cultivators and mortals. You probably cannot make this decision on your own." To be frank, Jiang Shuan had a point, but knowing that she had ulterior motives, even if she spoke beautifully, Fong Bangxia would not believe her. Gu Mei remained unmoved, clutching her somewhat uncomfortable chest, yet it did not hinder her performance. "Jiang Shuan, don't pretend in front of us. I know your intentions all too well. You don't have a mirror, but you must know what you look like, right? Haven't you seen your own face full of schemes? Only a fool would believe you. Besides, as long as you don't blindly trust them, you can see that our Lihen sect's flying boat has already arrived, so there's no need for your concern." Jiang Shuan's fists were clenched tightly in anger, her eyes burning with hatred. These people from the Lihen sect deserve to die, just like Ji Changge. As soon as Gu Mei finished speaking, Qi Zhang, who had been standing beside Jiang Shuan, immediately protested. "Jiang Shimi is thinking of you all, yet you are being ungrateful, maliciously speculating about her intentions. Truly a heart that is corrupt sees everything as dirty. Do you think Jiang Shimi is as filthy as you?" Even though Gu Mei was currently suffering from the demonic energy, she still managed to roll her eyes with great difficulty. "You Qingyuan sect people must have turned your beast-taming brains into beast brains." Among so many sects present, others did not get involved, yet the foolish dogs of the Qingyuan sect came to stir up trouble, sending both people and effort. Qi Zheng's face turned ashen with anger. Unable to retort Gu Mei, he could only grit his teeth. "You really don't know what's good for you." Jiang Shuan quietly said to Lu Tingyun, "Senior brother, let's act quickly. The people from the Lihen sect are notoriously unreasonable. Once they arrive, who knows how many troubles will arise. If they take Gu Mei away, and something goes wrong, it would be troublesome if we can't bear to act against Gu Mei and let her escape. I believe that only our master in the entire cultivation world can refine pills to suppress that demonic energy. Let's take her back directly. By the time Gu Shiji recovers, she will understand our good intentions." Knowing it was not the time to hesitate, Lu Tingyun decisively nodded. "Let's take them back to the Dan sect first. Once we control them, I will have my master personally send a message to Sect Master Yun." As soon as Lu Tingyun's words fell, several direct disciples of the Dan sect rushed forward. This time, all of them were direct disciples, not ordinary disciples. Although the Dan Sect's disciples were not particularly strong, Fawning was also a pill cultivator, so her combat power was not much help. Gu Mei, although a sword cultivator, was also distracted by suppressing the demonic energy and was injured, making it impossible for her to exert her full strength. As soon as the two sides collided, they were pushed back repeatedly, with Fawningsia's long whip almost leaving after images. Seeing that this situation could not continue, Gu Mei simply released her suppression, and the demonic energy erupted from her body. As the demonic energy erupted, her strength was fully unleashed. While she still had her wits about her, she shouted at Fawningsia, "Third Shiji, you should leave first and look for our fellow disciples. Otherwise, neither of us will be able to escape." Having just seen the flying boat sending messages to the sect, they were blocked by these people. At this moment, they did not even know who had come, and there was no time to send a distress signal. Fawningsia opened her mouth to refuse. If she was not there, wouldn't the fourth shimmy be left to be bullied by that Jiang Shuan? But before she could speak, Gu Mei's figure suddenly shot up, her long sword filled with spiritual power mixed with strands of demonic energy. The interplay of demonic energy and spiritual power made this sword strike exceptionally powerful. With Gu Mei's mid-golden core cultivation, this sword struck with the force of a peak golden core. This sword of hers had two purposes. One was to clear a path for Third Shiji to leave smoothly, and the other was to severely injure Jiang Shuan. Even if she was eventually taken away by the Dan Sect, it would leave Jiang Shuan too exhausted to deal with her. Although the direct disciples of the Dan Sect were not exactly good people, except for Jiang Shuan, the others would not do anything too excessive, nor would they seek her life. As Gu Mei's fierce sword came straight for her, Jiang Shuan's face turned pale with fright, but the next moment Qi Zheng beside her acted. With a cry from the golden-winged rock, it flapped its wings and flew in front of Jiang Shuan, blocking Gu Mei's sword with a swing of its golden wings. This golden-winged rock possessed strength comparable to that of a nascent soul. It had no problem blocking this sword. The next moment, the golden-winged rock swung its wings again, sending Gu Mei flying. Fawningsia wrapped her waist with the long whip to prevent her from falling to the ground. She herself was struck by someone from behind, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Seeing that the two were about to lose their power to resist the Dan Sect's, people prepared to rush forward and capture them. Jiang Shuan's eyes revealed a look of triumph, though she did not show it on her face, and thanked Qi Zheng beside her. "Thank you, Qi Shixiang, for coming to my rescue. I was thinking of their well-being, yet they wanted to take my life." Jiang Shuan sneered inwardly. Once they fell into the hands of the Dan Sect, as long as she moved a finger, Gu Mei's life and death would be at her command. Just as Qi Zheng was about to speak, an unexpected incident suddenly occurred. A blast of icy sword energy surged towards the Dan Sect direct disciples who were about to capture the two. Where the sword Qi swept, even the ground froze solid, startling several senior disciples of the Pill Sect into swift retreat. This single strike was potent enough to encase them all in ice. Yet Jiang Shuan, having withheld her attack, remained unscathed. Lu Tingyun, who had stood silently behind the senior disciples until now, could delay no longer. In a blur of motion, he surged forward, placing himself before them, and met the sword Qi Heiden with his drawn blade. The force of the strike drove him backward, his boots carving deep furrows into the earth. With quiet astonishment, he raised his gaze toward the figure standing ahead, calm, resolute, sword in hand. In mere months, Su Hanyue had grown markedly stronger. As she appeared, several others materialized beside her. Jiang Yinqing stood at her side, while Ji Changge and Yu Shi hurried to attend to their third and fourth senior sisters. "Third senior sister, fourth senior sister, are you unharmed?" Yu Shi asked urgently. Ji Changge's heart sank at the sight of his fourth senior sister, her body already permeated by demonic energy. They had arrived too late. Though he had departed early, fearing he might not make it in time, the demonic clan had emerged far sooner than foretold in the original course of events, leaving him powerless to prevent her corruption. Did this mean he could only alter trivial details, while pivotal turning points in the story remained him? Gu Mei and the others noticed Ji Changge at once. After shaking their heads to assure the fifth senior sister they were unharmed, they turned their attention to Ji Changge's stricken expression, and Gu Mei spoke, gently offering comfort. "So you're our youngest junior brother. I'm your fourth senior sister. Don't grieve. This demonic corruption may look alarming, but once we return to the Sect Master, we'll surely find a way to suppress it. There's no need to worry." "I'm your third senior sister," Fawningsia added. "Rest assured, we are who we are. A few senior disciples from the Pill Sect or Qingwan Sect pose no true threat to us. It's just a pity. We heard Master had taken on a new junior brother, yet we've been away on cultivation trials for so long that we never had the chance to prepare a proper welcome gift." "Rest easy, senior sisters," Ji Changge replied firmly. "Those from the Pill Sect and Qingwan Sect dared to bully you, my three senior sisters, and I will ensure they pay dearly." Within his heart, resolve hardened. Every soul of Lihen Sect had treated him with such warmth. No matter the cost, even his own life, he would bend fate itself to change the story's course. He believed unshakably that nothing in this world was truly immutable. Rising to his feet, he turned to the fifth senior sister. Fifth senior sister, you tend to them first. With that, he strode forward to stand beside his first and second senior sisters. He had arrived just in time to hear Jiang Shuwan plaintively insisting that they meant only well for Gu Mei, that they sought to bring them back to the pill sect for treatment, not understanding how their kindness had been mistaken for malice. Ji Changge burned with fury. Silence. Your mouth reeks worse than a public latrine in the mortal realm. You claim you act for my senior sister's sake. Shall I sever your head, and then declare it an act of benevolence? This world is but a colossal courier hub. Some packages are large, some small, and you unmistakably are the largest and most contemptible of them all. You. Jiang Shuwan trembled violently, her face contorting. Though she knew not what a courier hub was, she understood perfectly well that largest contemptible package meant vilest wretch. Qi Zheng, ever the gallant protector, stepped forward first. Who are you? Dare you insult a senior disciple of the pill sect? Such vulgar slander against a female cultivator reveals utter lack of refinement. Qi Zheng began only to be cut off sharply. Refinement? You dare torment my senior sisters, and still expect me to speak with refinement? All of you die. With that, Ji Changge hurled a thick stack of talismans straight at Jiang Shuwan. Explosive talismans, ice bolt talismans, separated flame talismans, thunder-invoking talismans. Every kind imaginable rained down upon her. Even Qi Zheng, a nascent soul cultivator, felt his scalp prickle at the sheer ferocity, especially without his spirit beast shielding him. Qi Zheng instantly summoned the golden-winged Great Peng to shield Jiang Shuwan. But the moment the great beast stirred, Su Hanyue slashed forth with a sword. Qi intercepted its flight and barred it from aiding her. Seeing the golden-winged Great Peng entangled, Qi Zheng had no choice but to intervene himself, yet the barrage was overwhelming. Even the talismans that slipped past were more than enough to leave Jiang Shuwan battered and broken. Her crimson sect robe was now scorched, drenched, and torn, utterly disheveled. Worse still, Ji Changge's relentless, unorthodox assault had caught them entirely off guard. Who in cultivation history ever flung talismans by the stack? Wasn't Lihen's sect famously impoverished? Little did they know, the Lihen sect of today was no longer the Lihen sect of old. With spirit art printing devices at their disposal, they could, if they chose, reduce the entire Duanhuan Ridge to rubble, talismans in hand and hearts unburdened by cost. Jiang Shuwan's face twisted beyond recognition. So enraged, she felt she might collapse on the spot were she but an ordinary mortal. She felt cursed by Ji Changge. Every time he appeared, fortune crumbled around her, especially since he'd left the pill sect. Could he not simply perish? As Ji Changge unleashed his torrent of talismans, full-scale battle erupted. Jiang Yunqing flicked her sleeve, and a storm of talismans poured forth, weaving instantly into a complex formation that ensnared the pill sect's senior disciples within its confines. Only Lu Tingyun, ever vigilant, reacted the instant Jiang Yunqing moved. Scatter, he roared. Before others could even blink, he leapt aside, clearing the formation's perimeter, and lunged toward Jiang Yunqing, sword flashing. Inside the formation, the pill sect disciples were overwhelmed, pummeled by ceaseless, devastating attacks. This was no mere binding array, it was lethal. Even if they broke free, they would emerge stripped of strength and spirit. Yet Jiang Yunqing, fully immersed in controlling the formation, had no capacity to confront Lu Tingyun directly. As he bore down upon her, Yu Shi and Fong Bangxia stepped forward, whip and crossbow alike raised, to intercept him. Lu Tingyun, though a pill cultivator, was still a nascent soul master, and neither Yu Shi nor Fong Bangxia were sword cultivators. Even united, they could not withstand him. Within 2 or 3 exchanges, both faltered, their defenses crumbling. Ji Changge frowned. This could not continue. His gaze shifted to the golden-winged Great Peng locked in combat with his second senior sister. Second senior sister, abandon the beast. Aid the first senior sister at once. Su Hanyue saw that her senior sister was struggling and could no longer afford to deal with the golden-winged rock. With a swing of her sword, she repelled the beast and rushed to assist Jiang Yunqing. Seeing Su Hanyue stop entangling with the golden-winged rock, Jiang Shuwan, who had just regained her composure, felt a surge of urgency. Fearing that Qi Zheng would allow the golden-winged rock to return and stop caring about the matter, she immediately grabbed Qi Zheng's sleeve, her eyes brimming with tears. Senior brother Qi, please help my master. Su Hanyue abandoned her fight with the golden-winged rock. Qi Zheng had no intention of getting involved further, as it was unreasonable for the Dan sect to forcibly take Gu Mei now that the people from the Lihen sect had arrived. However, seeing Jiang Shuwan's pleading expression, Qi Zheng felt compelled and directed the golden-winged rock to chase after Su Hanyue. But as soon as the golden-winged rock began to move, a swarm of small snakes formed from spiritual energy. The golden-winged rock is an ancient spiritual beast. Legend has it that in ancient times it fed on dragons. Of course, legends are often exaggerated. This dragon lineage might not be true dragons, but rather the Jiao clan. The Jiao are serpents that have evolved into their current form. Although the bloodline of the golden-winged roc has become quite thin over the years, its instincts remain unchanged. Being a spiritual beast rather than a human, the golden-winged roc cannot accurately distinguish between the snakes formed from spiritual energy and real snakes. Thus it soared into the sky and dove down, trying to peck at the illusory snakes. Ji Changge controlled the swarm of illusory snakes to dodge swiftly, while those that were pecked disintegrated into spiritual energy. Next, the golden-winged roc foolishly chased after the illusory snakes around the field, unable to heed Ji Changge's furious commands, ultimately succumbing to the instincts of a spiritual beast. With the golden-winged roc no longer entangling her, Xianxia quickly rushed to support her senior sister, driving back Lu Tingyun with just a few strikes. Lu Tingyun, not to be outdone, had poison pills at her disposal. With a sweep of her sleeve, she unleashed a torrent of poison pills, instantly filling the area with a toxic mist. Xianxia, also a pill master, had her own countermeasures. She took out several bottles of detoxification pills from her storage space and tossed them to the remaining members of the Lihen sect. Without needing to say much, they understood the purpose of the pills and immediately consumed them, rendering the toxic mist ineffective against them. Meanwhile, Xianxia also waved her sleeve, throwing out a large number of pills which mitigated most of the negative effects caused by Lu Tingyun's pills. However, she was still not as formidable as Lu Tingyun, and her pill refining skills were somewhat inferior, so she could not completely counteract the effects. Taking advantage of this moment, Jiang Yunqing also retracted the talisman formation, which consumed a significant amount of energy. Ji Changge severed his connection with the small snakes and ceased to control them, allowing them to wander freely while circling around the golden-winged roc. Xianxia stood resolutely at the forefront with her sword, effortlessly maintaining her defense against the numerous members of the Dan sect, embodying the spirit of a single warrior standing firm against 1,000 foes. Meanwhile, Jiang Yunqing and Ji Changge hid behind her, casually tossing talismans. A variety of talismans appeared in quick succession, leaving everyone overwhelmed, and soon, apart from Lu Tingyun, no one could approach Xianxia. It wasn't that the opponent's direct disciples were too weak, but rather that the talisman masters possessed exceptional crowd control abilities. Talisman masters are often said to be capable of controlling the entire scene as long as there is a suitable position, and considering they had 1.5 talisman masters. Ji Changge was merely a talisman master at this point, and had yet to learn how to use talisman formations. Watching his spiritual beast run around the field, Ji Changge became genuinely furious. He decided not to summon his spiritual beast anymore, and personally struck towards Ji Changge. As long as he dealt with this brat first, the snakes conjured from his spiritual energy would collapse without a fight, and the golden-winged roc wouldn't have to embarrass itself by spinning in circles. His plan was good, but before he could approach Ji Changge, Xianxia swung her sword and pulled him into the battle, forcing him to collaborate with Lu Tingyun against her. Without his spiritual beast, Ji Changge felt like a wild beast. Without fangs, his attack power greatly diminished, and he was on par with Lu Tingyun. Even together, they were still firmly suppressed by Xianxia. However, it was clear that Xianxia was not very interested in Ji Changge, as her long sword continually targeted Lu Tingyun. Before long, several gashes appeared on Lu Tingyun's body, leaving even a scar on his handsome face. Ji Changge was also enraged and shouted at the disciples of the Qingwan sect, "Why aren't you coming to help?" Without the master's orders, the other disciples of the Qingwan sect had refrained from attacking earlier. Now that the master had spoken, they had no more reservations. One by one, the spiritual beasts roared and charged into the battlefield. Among the formidable spiritual beasts, there was a small figure that seemed out of place. It was a nine-tailed snow fox. This snow fox was a small, fluffy white ball with bright red eyes that gave off a pitiful vibe, making it incredibly adorable. However, this snow fox, like its owner, appeared incongruous in the midst of the fierce battle. Among the male disciples of the Qingwan sect stood a little girl, delicate and lovely, looking around 10 years old, exceptionally cute, with her fair, tender skin. At this moment, her big round eyes were anxiously watching the nine-tailed snow fox in the arena, worriedly asking her senior brothers beside her, "Senior brothers, will Xiao Bai be hurt?" "Don't worry, Wan Wan. Xiao Bai is a divine beast. Even if our spiritual beasts are injured, she won't be harmed." The little girl nodded, seemingly reassured. This time, the Qingwan sect was merely assisting the Dan sect, so bringing their spiritual beasts was enough. At the moment the roaring spiritual beasts charged towards the Lihen sect, several talismans flew over, and 2 spiritual beasts were instantly struck by the talismans. The remaining spiritual beasts that dodged the first wave of talismans thrown by Ji Changge could not evade the talismans immediately following from Jiang Yunqing. In an instant, apart from the nine-tailed snow fox, all other spiritual beasts were affixed with talismans. The nine-tailed snow fox was extraordinarily fast, evading both waves of talismans. However, it seemed to have no intention of attacking. Jiang Yunqing simply ignored it, activating the talismans, causing the spiritual beasts from the Qingwan sect to begin uncontrollably attacking each other. At this moment, a slightly panicked soft voice rang out. Shall I come back quickly? As soon as the words fell, the nine-tailed snow fox transformed into a white shadow and swiftly darted back into Bai Wanwan's arms. Bai Wanwan petted the nine-tailed snow fox to soothe it, seemingly afraid it was scared. The sight made the senior brothers of the Qingluan sect twitch their lips uncontrollably. A little ancestor, that's a divine beast. In its prime, a single bite could swallow everyone present, yet you are worried about it being scared. Alas, there was no helping it. She was their little junior sister, so they could only indulge her. The members of Qingluan sect shook their heads while casting the beast control technique. The spirit beasts, which were previously fighting among themselves, immediately halted their battle and once again charged toward Lihen sect. These spirit beasts were roughly equivalent to Golden Core level. Xianxia and Yushi stood in front to block them, and with the assistance of the senior sister and junior brother's talismans, they managed to hold their ground. At this moment, Jiang Shuwan made her move. Although her cultivation was not high, the golden phoenix feather was indeed powerful, and flames infused with the essence of the phoenix true fire shot directly at Yushi and Xianxia. Ji Changge threw two defensive talismans in front of the two, then rushed straight toward Jiang Shuwan. I've been waiting for you for a long time. With a step forward, Ji Changge soared toward Jiang Shuwan, spinning midair, and the five elements flowing light fan transformed into a long sword slicing down, with a move reminiscent of falling snow in a starry river. Jiang Shuwan had already experienced this move. The last time she was only at the early stage of foundation establishment, but now she had reached the mid-stage of foundation establishment. Ji Changge did not use the true martial talisman, so she was confident she could take this move. However, when the two clashed, despite being at a higher realm, Jiang Shuwan was still sent flying by a single strike. A mouthful of fresh blood spewed out. Jiang Shuwan looked at Ji Changge in disbelief. How could this be possible? They were separated by a whole realm. Clearly, during their last encounter, Ji Changge hadn't been this strong. What she didn't know was that during their last encounter, Ji Changge had absorbed the power of the wood's spiritual root, crossing several realms, and his mastery of that power was still unrefined. Now, after 3 months, his control over his own strength had reached perfection. Not only had he improved by a small realm, but he had also absorbed a fire spirit fruit gifted to him by the second senior sister as a meeting gift, significantly boosting his strength. Ji Changge would not waste words with Jiang Shuwan and directly charged at her with his sword. Jiang Shuwan, now on the ground, looked at him with eyes filled with resentment. Impossible, I am the pride of heaven. I cannot lose to you, absolutely not. Jiang Shuwan erupted, fully unleashing her top-tier fire spiritual root, and a sea of flames burst forth from her. In an instant, Ji Changge found himself engulfed in a sea of fire, completely surrounded by flames. Thanks to the enhancement of the golden phoenix feather, all the flames contained a trace of phoenix divine fire's power. Fortunately, Ji Changge also had a fire spiritual root, granting him a strong resistance to fire. Just as he intended to break through the flames, he suddenly sensed that the essence of the phoenix divine fire within the flames seemed to be attracting him. Ji Changge was filled with suspicion as he reached out to touch the flames. In the next moment, a faint trace of phoenix divine fire's essence was absorbed into his body, merging into the spirit root tree in his dantian. Outside, several senior sisters of Lihen sect saw Ji Changge surrounded by the flames infused with the essence of Jiang Shuwan's phoenix divine fire, and they all panicked, rushing to save their junior brother without a second thought. However, at that moment, the sound of their junior brother's voice echoed in their minds, freezing them in place. In the next instant, they resumed fighting as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, the members of the Pill sect also noticed this scene. Lu Tingyun frowned and warned Jiang Shuwan, "Junior sister, don't cause any fatalities." Regardless of the grievances with Lihen sect or Ji Changge, they are not sworn enemies, and there's no need to push things to the point of life and death. From a public standpoint, this would cause a rift between the Pill sect and Lihen sect, and personally, even if he had no feelings for Ji Changge, he had once been known as his junior brother. Although the incident with Lihen sect had embarrassed the Pill sect, it was not to the extent of wishing for the other's death. Lu Tingyun thought his reminder would keep Jiang Shuwan aware of the situation, and with Su Hanyu's fierce attacks, he had no time to pay further attention. What he didn't know was that at this moment, Jiang Shuwan was not only ignoring his advice, but was instead fully urging the flames. Not cause any fatalities. That's impossible. I want Ji Changge dead. As for how this would end, that wasn't something she needed to consider. After all, her master and senior brothers would handle it. The cries of Ji Changge enveloped in flames excited Jiang Shuwan even more. In the flames, since no one could see outside, Ji Changge simply sat down, extending his hand into the flames to absorb the power of the phoenix divine fire. Whenever he felt the flames weren't fierce enough, he would let out a dramatic cry, and indeed the flames would flare up even more. This tool was also sound sensitive, quite convenient. At this moment, everyone was busy fighting except for Lihen sect. No one noticed Ji Changge's situation. Ji Changge had already informed Lihen sect about his condition, so no one came out to stop Jiang Shuwan's actions. It was only until Jiang Shuwan had nearly exhausted her spiritual power, her face pale with fatigue, that she finally sensed something was off. Phoenix Divine Fire could ignite anything. Even though this flame only contained a trace of its essence combined with the urging of her top-tier fire spiritual root, a quarter of an hour had already passed, and logically Ji Changge, a Qi refinement cultivator, should have been reduced to ashes by now. Yet Ji Change's cries still sounded vigorous, and even started to sound perfunctory. She couldn't shake the feeling that even the brilliance of the golden phoenix feather had dimmed a bit. Considering this, Jiang Shuwan immediately withdrew the flames, and the sight before her made her gasp in anger. Ji Changge was sitting cross-legged on the ground, and as she extinguished the flames, he was still dramatically wailing. As the flames suddenly vanished, Ji Changge was momentarily stunned. No, he was already at the critical point of breakthrough, on the verge of succeeding. How could it suddenly just disappear? This feeling was akin to a man in the midst of conquest about to reach the climax, only to discover the woman before him had lost her air. This sensation truly left one in a state of limbo, lost and disoriented, wishing for a restart, filled with fiery zeal. I digress. In short, it was very displeasing. He shot Jiang Shuwan an annoyed glance, the meaning in his eyes clear. Why did you Jiang Shuwan trembled with anger. No longer needing the power of fire, she directly swung her sword at Ji Changge. Ji Changge hurriedly dodged while negotiating with her. Jiang Shuwan, let's negotiate. Can you stop cutting me with your sword, and instead use your fire to burn me? He dodged yet another sword aimed at his throat. I'm being serious. Do you know that I also have a fire spiritual root, and are you deliberately letting me absorb the power from your flames? You're quite the good person. I just need a little more power to break through to the 7th layer of Qi refinement. Can you do me a solid and ignite a bit more fire? Jiang Shuwan was completely on edge, her long sword cutting through the air, each strike aimed at Ji Change's vital points. Yet Ji Changge was as slippery as an eel, and in her rage Jiang Shuwan couldn't even touch the head. Ji Changge shook his head. Just a bit of fire, and you won't release it. How stingy. Since that's the case, I won't play with you anymore. With that, Ji Changge spun his sword in his palm, and suddenly made his move. Ji Changge wielded his long sword with grace and speed, the sword's force like flowing clouds chasing the moon, so swift that it was nearly imperceptible to the naked eye. By the time Jiang Shuwan perceived the residual shadow of this strike, Ji Change's sword had already aimed directly at her chest. This strike was an immortal-level absolute skill learned by Ji Changge at the top of the library, named Flowing Clouds Chasing the Moon, primarily focused on speed and transformation. Regardless of what was said or done, the immortal-level absolute skill was not to be trifled with. Jiang Shuwan had no chance to evade this strike. As Ji Changge executed this move, the might of the immortal-level absolute skill swept across the arena, and everyone felt its presence. The disciples of the Dan sect immediately rushed to save Jiang Shuwan, and Qi Zheng was no exception. Su Hanyue struck with her move, snow falling on earth, causing countless snowflakes to fall, transforming into a sky full of sword energy, instantly trapping Lu Tingyun and Qi Zheng within, preventing them from aiding Jiang Shuwan. Su Hanyue charged with her sword, re-engaging the two in fierce combat. Moreover, with a sweep of her long sword, she drew Song Juanze and Lin Feng, who were rushing to save Jiang Shuwan, into her battle circle. All of this unfolded in the blink of an eye. Everyone was entangled and could only watch helplessly as Ji Change's long sword was about to pierce Jiang Shuwan's chest. In an instant, the cries of the junior sister and Jiang Shuwan echoed incessantly. Just as Ji Change's long sword pierced through Jiang Shuwan's clothing, an explosive force erupted from within her body, sending Ji Changge flying. By the time Ji Changge, who had been flung away, managed to get up, Jiang Shuwan, still shaken, began to react, a mixture of fear and pride evident on her face. Ji Changge, no matter how cunning your schemes, you cannot kill me. This is the power left on me by my master. Should anyone threaten my life, this power will emerge to protect my safety. Ji Change's expression darkened slightly. He had originally believed that both his and the entire Lihen sect's tragedies were due to Jiang Shuwan. Though in the original plot the members of the Lihen sect ultimately fell to Fu Qingye, Ji Changge believed that all of this was orchestrated by Jiang Shuwan. Fu Qingye was a swordsman whose mind was as sharp as his blade, lacking any flexibility. He was her protector and at the same time the knife in her hand. From both the original plot and his own experiences, Fu Qingye was undoubtedly righteous. Just moments ago, Ji Changge had considered directly killing Jiang Shuwan to eliminate the root of the problem, but alas, the protagonist was not so easy to kill. However, Ji Changge quickly adjusted his mindset. Even if he could not temporarily kill Jiang Shuwan, he could still make her miserable. Jiang Shuwan angrily took out a supplement spirit pill, preparing to consume it. Her spiritual energy had been overly depleted, and once she recovered, she would make Ji Changge pay. Just as she was about to take the supplement spirit pill, a fiery blaze erupted before her, flames roaring like an angry dragon charging straight at her. The supplement spirit pill in her hand was instantly reduced to ashes, and the endless flames engulfed her in a flash. Jiang Shuan even sensed a hint of Phoenix true fire within those flames. Her first thought was, how could this be possible? Although Ji Changge with his 5 spirit roots was at a significant cultivation disadvantage, his overwhelming spiritual energy was not inferior to Jiang Shuan's. After all, having 5 spirit roots meant he could wield 5 times the spiritual energy of a single spirit root at the same cultivation level. At the moment Jiang Shuan was engulfed in flames, her protective barrier was once again activated. However, while that power could shield her, it could not protect other parts of her body, especially her hair. At this time, Jiang Shuan's hair was burnt into irregular curls, the originally tied-up hair now loose, and some parts charred, even emitting smoke. She looked just like a modern girl with an explosion perm, well, more like a scorched version of it. Ji Changge was overjoyed. Ha ha, Jiang Shuan, let me tell you, this counts as a free perm for you. Do you know what a perm is? It's all the rage where I come from, and it's very expensive. I did your styling for free without charging you. Don't believe me? Just take a look. Ji Changge, lacking a mirror, decided to use his water spirit root ability to conjure a gigantic water mirror, setting it before Jiang Shuan so she could see her current appearance. Jiang Shuan took one glance and almost broke down, instantly shattering the water mirror before her with a sword, raising her sword and preparing to fight Ji Changge to the death. Ji Changge flipped his palm and swiftly affixed a true martial talisman onto himself. While he could defeat Jiang Shuan even without the true martial talisman, it was only a matter of being able to win. With the true martial talisman, his cultivation level was elevated to match Jiang Shuan's. At the same cultivation level, he could utterly dominate Jiang Shuan with absolute superiority. In fact, Ji Change's own strength was slightly inferior to Jiang Shuan's. After all, Jiang Shuan, with her top-tier dual spirit roots, was not to be underestimated. It was only through the might of the immortal-level absolute skill that he could overcome her. But after using the true martial talisman, the situation was drastically different, allowing him to completely overpower Jiang Shuan, who had already reached the mid-stage of foundation establishment. At this moment, Ji Changge didn't even need to use his sword, for should he endanger Jiang Shuan's life with it, he couldn't pierce her. Instead, the long sword in his hand flickered with light and transformed into a long staff, striking down towards Jiang Shuan. Faced with the Ji Changge who had used the true martial talisman, Jiang Shuan was completely outmatched. Ji Changge moved swiftly, first striking her sword-wielding right hand with the staff, causing the sword in her hand to immediately fly away. He then unleashed a flurry of powerful strikes upon her. Jiang Shuan was beaten to the point where she cried out for help from her senior brother, no longer caring about her dignity, as she screamed in agony. She couldn't understand why, as a person praised as a heavenly prodigy, she kept falling to this waste. Ji Changge. Upon seeing the situation on Jiang Shuan's side, the Dan Sect members were frantically trying to rush to her aid. In their urgency to save Jiang Shuan, Lu Tingyun and Shi Zheng exhibited extraordinary performance, teaming up with Song Juanze and Lin Feng. Together, the four managed to temporarily force Su Hanyue back. No matter how strong Su Hanyue was, she was ultimately just one person. Just as the four of them were leaping back to support Jiang Shuan, a cold smile crept onto Su Hanyue's lips as she spoke, 1,000 miles of ice encasing. As she spoke, a layer of frost visibly covered the long sword in her hand. Once her words fell, Su Hanyue thrust her sword into the ground. In the next moment, a layer of frost spread from her frost moon sword, rapidly extending across the ground. The few who hurried to save Jiang Shuan were all encased in ice by Su Hanyue's move, each one surrounded by a layer of solid ice. This was the fourth style of the Lihen sect's falling snow sword, art, 1,000 miles of ice encasing. This move, when executed by Su Hanyue with her ice spirit root, was exponentially more powerful. At the Beast Master sect by Wanwan held her nine-tailed snow fox, watching Jiang Shuan being ruthlessly beaten by Ji Changge, and she spoke hesitantly. That senior sister is so pitiful, and that senior brother is so fierce. The senior brothers nearby nodded in agreement. One of them cautioned, so Wanwan must remember, when the senior brothers are not around, never provoke that senior brother. This kid clearly did not understand what it meant to cherish the delicate, and they feared their little junior sister might also be brutally bullied, so they hurried to admonish her. After all, their little junior sister was so adorable. If that kid bullied her like this, they would definitely go on a killing spree. Bai Wanwan nodded seriously, indicating that she understood. She originally wanted to say that the senior sister was too pitiful and asked if they should help her. But the senior brothers had already released their spirit beasts, and to help her, they would have to send out Xiaobai. After thinking it over, she decided against it, fearing that Xiaobai might also get beaten. Ji Changge truly did not understand what it meant to cherish the delicate, and he showed no awareness of gender, stepping on Jiang Shuan and swinging the stick in his hand wildly at her. Once one has cultivated, who still cares about gender? It's all about strength. Besides, she was currently a threat to him and his sect, and could potentially endanger the entire Lianzong in the future. If he were to show mercy just because she was a woman, that would truly be madness. Ji Changge swung his stick with vigor, even knocking out the protective force surrounding Jiang Shuwan several times. Ji Changge, who had been knocked back, immediately got up and gave Jiang Shuwan another round of brutal beating. This is for bullying my senior sister. This is for framing me. This is for being a green tea BTCH. Just as Ji Changge was having a great time beating her, countless talismans flew out behind him, forming a talisman array. Upon looking up, he found that the direct disciple of the Alchemy Sect had returned at some point. Ji Changge felt a tightness around his waist, and looking down he saw he was ensnared by the long whip of the third senior sister, and in the next moment, he was pulled back into the Lianzong's ranks. At this time, Lu Tingyun and Shi Zheng, who were encased in ice, broke free, first not caring about the Lianzong members anymore, and immediately went to check on Jiang Shuwan's condition. Jiang Yunqing's voice rang in their ears. Little junior brother, the situation of the fourth junior sister is not good. We need to leave here first. The others nodded, and taking advantage of everyone's attention on Jiang Shuwan, summoned a flying boat and swiftly departed. On the flying boat, they first checked Gu Mai's condition, realizing that there was indeed not much time left, and they had to hurry back to the sect. Jiang Yunqing sighed in relief, saying, "Fortunately, this time little junior brother suggested taking the flying boat out. Otherwise, the situation of the fourth junior sister would have been troublesome, and we wouldn't have made it back to the sect in time." After some discussion, they agreed that given Gu Mai's current condition, they must return to the sect as quickly as possible, but Ji Changge felt a bit reluctant to give up since he knew Fu Qingye would obtain a growth-type defensive treasure at Duanhuan Ridge. Although the original plot only mentioned it in passing, Ji Changge remembered that the male lead Fu Qingye obtained a growth-type defensive treasure at Duanhuan Ridge. Now that they were here, he naturally could not let this heaven-sent opportunity slip away. Perhaps with some luck, he might even get his hands on that treasure. After discussing, they decided that fifth senior sister she would take fourth senior sister and third senior sister back on the flying boat, while he and the first and second senior sisters would stay here. After making this decision, Ji Changge and the three of them got off the flying boat, and Yushi controlled the flying boat, disappearing with a whoosh. First senior sister, second senior sister, do you have any way to conceal our presence? The two were puzzled by Ji Changge's intentions and looked at him with confusion. I was thinking that when we arrive at Duanhuan Ridge, we only see the Alchemy Sect and Qinghuan Sect members, while the other sects are nowhere to be found. Perhaps they discovered some treasure here. When he mentioned this, the other two senior sisters reacted, realizing that indeed. Before coming, it was only said that there were unusual movements at Duanhuan Ridge, but no one could confirm that these movements were caused by the demon clan. When encountering the demon clan, they assumed that the movements here referred to that demon clan. But what if it wasn't? Ji Changge thought for a moment and proposed, we can first hide our presence and circle around Duanhuan Ridge to see if there are any anomalies. If we find anything unusual, we can then seize the chance to obtain the treasure. Now that Gu Mei and the others had returned to the sect, and there were only the three of them left, they had no worries about being hindered. They had already notified the sect while returning on the flying boat, so the journey would not involve any dangers. However, with only the three of them, they indeed appeared to be weak compared to the other forces. Jiang Yunqing contemplated for a moment and stuck a large number of concealing talismans, illusion talismans, and many other talismans onto the three of them in the form of a talisman array. As living beings, it was clearly unrealistic for them to be completely invisible, but they could construct an illusion array with talismans, making everyone who looked at them unknowingly fall into the illusion, believing that the area was devoid of any presence. Because this illusion array had no offensive capabilities, it was difficult to detect. To put it bluntly, it was just a trick to deceive the eyes. It would not work on those with very high cultivation, and if someone carefully sensed their location, they could still find traces, so they still had to do their best to stay in a position where others couldn't easily probe. Once everything was arranged, the three of them flew around on their swords. As the most inconspicuous place, Jiang Yunqing flew with Ji Changge, who gritted his teeth to withstand the dizziness from flying on the sword, determined to endure it for the sake of the treasure. They did not find any members of the Nameless Sword sect, but the other sects seemed to have discovered something, all heading towards one direction from different angles. The people below must have sensed some aura. Seeing this, the two quickened their speed, flying forward in the direction where everyone was heading. The leaders of the other sects had to wait for their disciples from behind, so their actions were naturally not as swift as Su Hanyue and Jiang Yunqing. Before long, they indeed saw members of the Nameless Sword sect. To avoid being discovered, they flew a bit higher. At this point, even from their high altitude, they could sense that aura, an ancient and powerful presence, undoubtedly indicating that a supreme treasure was about to appear. The four of them exchanged glances and quietly descended a bit lower. They could see that Fu Qingye was currently sitting cross-legged on the ground with an object resembling a tortoise shell floating above his head, seemingly undergoing the process of refining and recognizing its master. Surrounding him were disciples of the Nameless Sword sect on guard, clearly protecting him. Each of these disciples from the Nameless Sword sect was not weak. Even if the first and second senior sisters teamed up, it would be impossible to quickly deal with them without alarming Fu Qingye. If they alarmed Fu Qingye and provoked him to take action, these few of them truly would not be his match. We can't wait any longer. If that treasure fully recognizes its master, it will be too late. It'll go down to attract their attention, and the first senior sister and little junior brother can retrieve that treasure. Su Hanyue suggested. Both women knew Ji Changge was full of schemes, yet they could not fathom any method to seize the artifact without engaging in direct combat. Ji Changge smiled mysteriously and withdrew the 5-element radiant fan. With a flash of light, it transformed into a fishing rod. Senior sisters, have you ever gone fishing? At that moment, Fu Qingye was wholly absorbed in forging a spiritual connection with the Xuanwu shield, a sentient spirit artifact requiring divine sense communion before it would acknowledge its master. Unaware, he failed to notice an almost invisible filament descending from directly above him, already coiling silently around the hovering Xuanwu shield. Even the other disciples of the Nameless Sword sect standing vigilant on guard remained utterly oblivious. How could anyone imagine danger descending from above when they had sealed the area so tightly that not even a fly could slip through? In the next instant, the Xuanwu shield shot skyward with a sharp whistle and vanished. Only when Fu Qingye's spiritual link to the shield snapped entirely did he snap his eyes open in shock and stare upward dumbfounded. Where is the Xuanwu shield? Where is my colossal Xuanwu shield? Fu Qingye flung his divine sense outward in frantic search, but found nothing. The shield had seemingly dissolved into thin air. When the Nameless Sword sect disciples noticed the anomaly, in turn they too stood frozen in disbelief. High above, racing across the heavens atop a swift flying sword, Ji Changge clutched the Xuanwu shield, laughing so hard his eyes crinkled shut, completely forgetting his usual motion sickness. Simultaneously, both senior sisters thought, that's outright theft. Yet the notion vanished just as swiftly, replaced by admiration. No, this is sheer brilliance. With the treasure secured, they wasted no time, immediately setting course for the Lihen sect. Before departing, they spotted disciples from several other sects converging upon the site. Tensions flared the moment factions met. Faintly, they heard Fu Qingye vehemently accusing the others of stealing the Xuanwu shield, while the rival sects retorted that he had staged the entire incident to claim the artifact for himself. In truth, Fu Qingye might have sensed them had he paid closer attention, but blame lay instead with the uncanny timing of the other sect's arrival. By the time the three departed, the factions were already locked in furious battle, yet none of it concerned them anymore. They soared home in serene triumph. The two senior sisters unanimously awarded the Xuanwu shield to Ji Changge. After all, its acquisition hinged entirely upon his ingenuity. Moreover, as the newest disciple with the lowest cultivation realm, he needed this defensive spirit artifact most. Ji Changge felt deeply moved. The Xuanwu shield was a rare, growth-type spirit artifact capable of evolving alongside its master's cultivation, an exceedingly precious treasure. Such a priceless artifact, and yet his senior sisters bestowed it upon him without hesitation. Ji Changge accepted without prolonged refusal, immediately slashing his palm and letting his blood drip onto the shield's surface. A sharp sting made Ji Changge hiss in pain. Countless novels and dramas depicted palm slashing as effortless, blood flowing freely without sensation, so he'd assumed cultivation rendered such wounds trivial. He was wrong. It hurt just as much. Even at full speed, both senior sisters instinctively glanced sideways at Ji Changge, bewildered by his strange action. "Junior brother, what are you doing?" Ji Changge blinked in surprise. "Isn't bloodletting required for spirit artifact attunement?" Attunement demands divine sense communion, imprinting one's spiritual signature upon the artifact. Only cultivators who've achieved foundation establishment can cultivate divine sense. You're far from that stage, junior brother. And who told you attunement requires blood? Ji Changge fell silent. Damn, I've read too many novels. My mind's completely crossed-wired. The original host prior to Ji Changge's arrival had cultivated only to Qi refinement level 1, and as a latecomer to cultivation had never encountered spirit artifact attunement. Naturally, no such memory existed within his consciousness. Mentioning attunement, Ji Changge reflexively assumed blood binding. So, he'd slashed his hand for nothing. What novels? What crossed wires? By now the senior sisters had grown accustomed to Ji Changge's occasional incomprehensible phrases. Though Master Sister wore a puzzled expression, she immediately produced a healing pill and handed it to him. His palm wound sealed before their eyes. The trio returned to the Lihen Sect at breakneck speed and went straight to see Sect Master Yunzimo. Within the Lihen Sect, when Gu Mei and the others returned the pill, Dao Peak Master was already waiting with the Sect Master. After examining Gu Mei's condition and administering several pills, she temporarily suppressed the rampant demonic energy surging within her. She then hurried back to pill Dao Peak to refine stronger suppressants, whereupon Sect Master Yunzimo declared, all sect resources shall be hers to command unreservedly, for as long as she strives to forge the demon-suppressing elixir. As Ji Changge and the others entered, Sect Master Yunzumo was listening intently to her third disciple recount the events at Duanhuan Ridge, her expression icy and stern. The Dan sect dares go this far. Unforgivable. Her gaze swept over her disciples. At the Sixth Sect Grand Contest 3 months hence, ignore all others. Rank matters not. One directive alone crushed the Dan sect's core disciples utterly on the contest grounds. Especially Jiang Shuan. If opportunity arises, eliminate her. All consequences shall be borne. This Jiang Shuan she had once deemed merely restless, possessing petty ambitions. She never imagined such venomous malice could dwell in one so young. Left unchecked, she would become a grave threat. Having plotted against her disciple Jiang Shuan, must now prepare to pay the price. It was the first time since Ji Changge's initiation that their master had issued such solemn weighty instructions, and the first time he witnessed her genuine, unbridled fury. The others were unsurprised. Their master had always taught, Lihen sect disciples neither provoke conflict nor fear it. We strike not first, but should anyone strike us we repay tenfold. Ji Changge spoke up, Master, I had intended to end Jiang Shuan today, but her fortune runs unusually strong, and Yihanzhan has left her with formidable protective measures, making her nearly impossible to kill. Yunzumo scoffed coldly, that old fool Yihanzhan. How devoted he is to Jiang Shuan. With a flick of her sleeve, several streaks of luminous energy shot forth, vanishing into Ji Changge and the other core disciples. If Jiang Shuan bears Yihanzhan's protective chi, then our disciples shall bear mine. Each receives a strand. Mine surpasses that weakling's by leagues. Inside the Dan sect, Yihanzhan was furious to see his little disciple Jiang Shuan so severely beaten. After hearing the accounts from a few disciples, he immediately decided to confront the Lihen sect. The people from the Lihen sect were truly ungrateful, biting the hand that fed them. Despite his disciple considering them at every turn, not only did they not appreciate it, but they even left Shuan in such a state. In the past, the Lihen sect was not this despicable. It must be that Ji Changge harbored resentment and incited his senior sisters to attack the disciples of the Dan sect. Yihanzhan stood up to confront the Lihen sect, but paused, sitting back down as he leisurely sipped his tea. The direct disciples of the Lihen sect are now tainted by demonic energy. In the entire cultivation world, only the Dan sect has the capability to resolve this situation. Although the Lihen sect has a path in alchemy, their reputation has waned over the years, suggesting they are rather mediocre. Ultimately, when they find themselves at their wits' end, they will still come to him for help. At that time, seeing his master's sudden calm demeanor, the few direct disciples also realized this, and for a moment they were no longer anxious. In any case, they will ultimately need to come to beg them. Jiang Shuan revealed a sinister smile in a corner where no one was paying attention. Ji Changge, what does it matter if you take Gume away? They will still have to come to our Dan sect for aid. By then, I want all the direct disciples of the Lihen sect to bow their heads and apologize to me. This is the price you must pay for insulting me. Everyone in the Dan sect was eagerly anticipating, rubbing their fists together, waiting for the people from the Lihen sect to come begging them. Little did they know the Lihen sect had already begun to concoct pills to suppress the demonic energy. Elder Chen from the Dan Dao Peak possessed unparalleled expertise in alchemy, surpassing even the elders of the Dan sect. However, as the Lihen sect was not specialized in alchemy, Elder Chen's reputation had suffered. In truth, her alchemical skills were nearly on par with Yihanzhan. Finally, 3 days later, Elder Chen successfully refined a pill to suppress the demonic energy. Although she only produced 1 pill per batch, it was sufficient. She immediately administered it to Gu Mei, and the demonic energy within her was instantly suppressed. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, though this relief was not complete. Elder Chen stated that the demonic energy within Gu Mei could only be suppressed, not completely eradicated. Even the current leader of the Dan sect, Yihanzhan, could not achieve this. Gu Mei would have to rely on herself to gradually eliminate the demonic energy, though this would be a lengthy process. Fortunately, the pill crafted by Elder Chen was quite powerful, firmly confining the demonic energy in a corner of Gu Mei's body. Unless something significant occurred, the demonic energy would not break free from its confinement. Everyone sighed in relief, but only Ji Changge remained deeply troubled. He understood that this strand of demonic energy was the crucial opportunity for his 4th senior sister to fall into demonic possession. Was he unable to prevent this from happening, nor could he stop what would unfold afterward? No way. Ji Changge shook his head, casting these thoughts from his mind. He did not know if he could change everyone's fate, but he had no other options. He would simply strive to do his best and leave the rest to destiny. Elder Chen sighed, alas. It's all my fault for lacking skill. Well, I only produced 1 pill from a batch of materials, and the rest were wasted. Even if I could produce 1 more pill, it could have been sold for quite a sum. Yunzumo comforted her. Elder Chen, your ability to refine this pill to suppress the demonic energy has already made a significant contribution to our sect. Without you, our sect might have had to seek help from the Dan sect, and they would probably have extorted us, leaving our sect with no—" Hearing this, Ji Changge's eyes brightened. He had some understanding of alchemy since he had previously been in the dance. Alchemy requires immense soul power, primarily needing to multitask, wrapping the materials in the furnace with soul power, while enduring the pain of the scorching flames on the spirit, controlling the materials within the furnace and simultaneously allocating a portion of soul power to control the flames, maintaining a stable temperature and adjusting it according to the needs of the materials. The more stable the flame control during this process, and the better the temperature matched with the materials, the higher the success rate of pill formation, and the more pills produced in one batch. Ji Changge felt that controlling the temperature of the flames was not a technical skill. It could be done without soul power using methods similar to modern electric stoves or gas stoves. After seriously considering the feasibility, he thought surprisingly it might actually work. He decided to do it and found his fifth senior sister, and together they began to tinker with a temperature-controllable alchemy furnace. They also sought out their third senior sister and consulted her on a great deal of knowledge needed for alchemy. Ultimately, Ji Changge concluded that the timing required for alchemy was far more complex than what was used in modern cooking. Every slight difference in the flames would affect the success rate of pill formation. After 7 days of research among the three, they finally improved a furnace that could control the temperature. It was still a matter of technology compensating for insufficient spiritual power. By inserting spirit stones, the temperature control system could be activated with dozens of firepower levels available for selection, allowing for instant temperature changes. The values range from 100 to 3000. Of course, these values corresponded to the temperature of the spiritual fire used in alchemy, not the temperature of ordinary flames. The three had already tested it. With this modification, as long as the corresponding level was selected, the temperature of the furnace would be very stable. The only downside was that the user needed to have a thorough understanding of these dozens of levels of firepower so they could adjust the temperature in time while refining pills. However, this was much simpler than multitasking with soul power to control the flames. Fong Bansha first familiarized herself with all the values corresponding to the flames and memorized them before starting to refine pills. After Ji Changge's modification, the furnace shifted from being controlled by soul power to being controlled by spiritual power, which still utilized the spiritual power of spirit stones. As it was her first experiment, Fong Bansha chose a basic healing pill. She activated the temperature control system, and as spiritual power flowed into the furnace, a cluster of flames ignited below, preheating the furnace. Once the temperature was nearly right, Fong Bansha added the materials in batches to the furnace, controlling their slow fusion with her soul power. With no need to allocate soul power to control the flames, Fong Bansha felt that refining pills was significantly easier. However, she did not dare to be careless, as it was her first time using this new furnace. Almost all her focus was on controlling the materials with her soul power, while her right hand occasionally adjusted the temperature on the light screen in front of her. Half an hour later, a fragrant scent wafted from the furnace, and Fong Bansha ceased all actions. The three exchanged glances, and Fong Bansha nervously lifted the furnace lid. Upon seeing the pills inside, her eyes widened. These are high-quality healing pills, and there are 7 of them. It's worth noting that when she previously refined these healing pills, she managed to produce only 5 or 6 at most. Now, with this improved furnace, not only was pill refining much simpler, but the success rate had also significantly increased. This was even while she was still not very skilled. She could hardly imagine that if she became proficient, it would not be impossible to produce 8 or even 9 pills. Producing 9 pills from one batch meant that all the materials used were fully utilized with not a single bit wasted, requiring the materials and flames to be perfectly coordinated. Now, with this temperature-controllable furnace, she had the opportunity to achieve it. Fong Bansha excitedly hugged Ji Changge. "Little junior brother, you are truly a genius.